Good morning. This is a regular meeting of the Cameron County Commissioners Court. It is 10:30 a.m. as we do all meetings. We will start with a moment of silence, followed by the Pledge of Allegiance to the U.S. flag and the Texas flag. I would like to ask Commissioner Benavides to lead us in the pledges to those two flags at the appropriate time. Thank you. Commissioner.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Under the Texas flag, I pledge allegiance to thee, Texas, one state under God, one indivisible.
Thank you. Public comments? We are going to be taking a few items out of order that I've been requested to do so for various reasons. Pete, which ones do you want to do first? I know that you're pressed for time because you got to go back.
On presentations 2B and 2C.
Are we ready for 2B and 2C? Who's going to represent on the drainage? Is it Godfrey?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Okay, he's not going to be here? All right. Would you like to wait a little bit, see if he's going to show up? I thought he was going to show up.
I think if we can get it, if we can start it, and then I think he's on his way.
Oh, so well, why don't we just wait for him to get here? Yeah. You know, as a courtesy, I mean, he's driving all this way. Let's go ahead and wait for him to get here.
Okay.
Let's go then to item C, presentation by independent insurance consultant Kenneth Wethy. And Ken, try to keep it to about 5 to 7 minutes, please. Let me just hit the timer.
Good morning. For the record, my name is Ken Wethy. I'm the independent insurance consultant for the employee benefit portion of your insurance programs. And I have prepared a report regarding our self-funded health plan that is administered by Texas Association of Counties in association with Blue Cross Blue Shield. Unlike previous presentations that I've presented to you, we have had a change in the fund balance. In the past, we've had 4 years where we had positive flow into the health fund. As we're looking at the first 3 months of the current plan year, there will be a deficit, a loss. Our revenue will be less than our claims administration costs by $641,456. I'm on page 1 of the report here. I've added a new page to my report from what I've had in the past. If we could go to page 2 in my report, this provides additional information, supporting information for estimated fund balance, which is the first item on my report. And if we go to page 2, that's headed County Contribution and Fund Balance History, we start out the year 2006-2007, where you were with Mutual of Omaha, and you incurred a loss for that plan year of $1,129,690. Then you changed to Blue Cross Blue Shield with the administration by Texas Association of Counties. And in that year, after we had paid the runoff claims from the prior year by Mutual of Omaha, because with a self-funded plan, the carrier is, you've got the ultimate responsibility for those claims that have been incurred prior to the date of termination that are going to be run off into the next year. And we contracted with Mutual of Omaha to do that administration so that Blue Cross could just focus on the new claims and the new discounts they had with the providers. Well, that was a good year for us, in that we developed a gain of $2,075,386. So then our fund balance offset that deficit by 945, 696. Then in the second year, we continued to have favorable revenue in relation to claims. There is also the county's contribution, and I have a column there that shows us what the county contribution was. So in that year where we had that substantial gain, you had moved up the county's contribution from $4,800 a year to $5,200. And then, as you saw how claims were working its way through and what your costs of your plan were, then you pull down that contribution by the county to $5,000 a year, but we still had a positive inflow into the fund of $1,399,322. Then, and incidentally, in that year, we changed our plan year from a September 1 ending August 31 to ending September 30th to line up with your fiscal year. So that's the reason we're showing the number of months as 13 months as opposed to 12 months. So then in our third year, we had a positive fund balance of $1,399,322. The next year, the county's contribution went down to $4,900 per employee per month, and you had a positive fund balance of $682,995. Then last year, which would be the fourth year here, your contribution went back to $4,800, same as what you had back in 2006, 2007, and we had a modest fund balance of gain of $93,802. And then as we're looking at it for the first 3 months of this year, we are showing that there's been a change here, and there's a couple reasons for that. One would be your county contribution went down to $4,400, so that'd be one element. And then a second element would be we had 3 large claims, or really 2 large claims that were over $100,000 in that first 3 months. And with a self-funded plan, our deductible, we have an insurance company, Blue Cross Blue Shield, providing deductible for large specific claims, and that deductible amount is $200,000. So we can take a look at our large claims, which would be on page.
Is it 200,000 in aggregate, or is
no,
it
200,000 per
claimant?
individual
Okay.
per year. Now, when we went into the renewal for the coming year, for the year we're in right now, we looked at the cost for a $100,000 deductible versus continuing with our $200,000 deductible. And we found that when we factored in the increased cost for $100,000 versus a $200,000 and looked at the recovery we would get from $100,000 versus $200,000, we were ahead by about $402,000 by staying with a $200,000 because of the lesser cost. There's a significant difference in the cost between the $100,000 and the $200,000. So when you're self-funded and you are able to absorb a fluctuation, and I'm hopeful, and we need to come back in 3 months and review how it's going for a half a year, I'm hopeful it'll stabilize and that we will get back to something more like what we've had in the past. But that was a major decision, and that has, our large claims are on page 5. And the structure of this report is the same as what I have done for the last 4 or 5 years. We had one dependent claim, and we can't get into the particulars of this claim because of protected health information. We can just see that we did get a significant discount on that claim, and the gross amount of that claim was $422,550, but then we pulled out $222,000 for discount. And so then the net amount that we paid on that claim was $195,755. So we're just below the $200,000 touchstone for when the individual deductible would kick in. I have done a little research on this claim, and my understanding is that it's doing all right. We don't expect to have significant additional charges on this claim. The next claim that was over the $100,000, I don't know why. It was a $141,000 claim, and the discount we only got was $29,550. We expect more in the $50,000, $60,000, but these discounts will vary by provider. And so if you're, let's say, going to a provider outside of this immediate area, this area, the lower Rio Grande Valley, the contracts are extremely good. When I do work up in Central Texas, our average discount here is running 64%. If I'm up in Central Texas, I may be more like 45%. So it'll vary by region. So if you go up into the Dallas metropolitan, you go to Baylor, or you go to Herman Hospital in Houston, we got a power war going on between the providers and the payers. And so if we can keep people in this local area, we get those discounts. Well, anyways, that net amount paid on that claim was $109,991. So we only had 2 claims that were what I call catastrophic, above 100. And then we had just 1 claim that was above that 50,000 threshold that I report on. So, there's another item that contributes to why we had this anomaly. That's what I'd like to call it, an anomaly from what we've seen in the past. And it's the handout that that Manuel, Mr. Villarreal, provided to you. With a self-funded plan, a very important thing is to be monitoring the claim lag. I hadn't gotten into this level of detail in the past because our plan was running well. As we look at this, there's 2 pages to it. The first is titled Claim Lag Study, September 2011. What that is a full 12 months of paid claims that had a date of service on or after October 1, 2010. So the runoff amount, had we terminated the contract back in October of 2010, the runoff for the next 12 months was $365,709. And that is a very low runoff. And when we were in Mutual of Omaha, the runoff was significantly higher than that. And it has to do with the contract that Blue Cross or other major providers have with the insurance carriers, payers, have with the providers, which requires prompt pay. And they're looking for that cash flow coming in. So in the case of Blue Cross, they pay the claims promptly. That doesn't mean they're not going to reserve the right to audit the claim later. But they move the money out, and then they'll ask questions later if they see some anomaly, and there's a lot of computer matching that goes into that. So anyways, touchstone would be runoff of 365,709. Now, when we go to the next page, which is the runoff as of the end of December for a 12-month period, and I've highlighted in yellow this 3-month period that we're tracking. So this would be claims paid in October, November, and December that had a date of service prior to October 1, 2011. And that amount for the 3-month runoff was $456,748. So right there, we've got an anomaly. And I've highlighted what was one of the causes of that. In July, we paid $115,711. For some reason, there was a delay in that claim being able to be settled in their normal processing manner. Normally, we don't see a large claim like that in the second month. So that accounted for maybe another 90,000 of our, why we think we got a difference here. So what I'd like to do is come back in 3 months and give you an update on it. That is the most significant message I would like to bring to your attention right now. And you still have a good fund balance. You're to be complimented on it. And this is an important part of monitoring a self-funded and managing a self-funded plan, is being sure that you're adequately funding it. And once you get behind and you're not adequately funding it, then it's terrible to do the catch-up. So compliments.
Thank you, Ken. Well, thank you for your work. Anybody have any questions? Do I hear a motion to acknowledge? Moved by Commissioner Benavides, second by Commissioner Gatz. Any further discussion? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Carries.
Thank you all very much.
Thank you, Ken. I got a bunch of stuff, yeah.
Judge, Commissioners, I'd request if y'all could wait a little bit longer. The Commissioner is en route.
Okay, yeah, we're gonna wait. We got plenty to
Thank
do.
you.
Plenty of agenda items.
Plenty of other stuff to
Let's
discuss.
go to, let's go to the action items. Oh, let's take care of the consent. Anybody have, any items wishing to take out or table? I've been asked to table item J.
And Judge, could you please table item N as in Nancy?
To table item N. On item X, that's a travel item. That will be myself instead of Commissioner Gatsa and Commissioner Sanchez and David Garcia to San Antonio with that change.
Thank you for going, Judge.
Well, thank you. Any other item anybody wants to take out and talk about?
Yes. Item H, K, L, O, P, Q, S, T, Y, double A, double B, and double C.
Anything else? Do I hear a motion to approve consent with the exception of item H to discuss separately, item J to table, item K, L to discuss separately, item N to table, item O, P, Q, S, T, X, Y, double A, double B, double C to discuss separately? Hear a motion?
So move.
By Commissioner Sanchez, second by Commissioner Gatsa. All in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Carries. Item H, request for authorization approval of a renewal for consultant services by Ken Wethy.
And this one's just based on the report we just got. This is to continue his services.
Yes.
And I guess the only question I have is, how long has he been doing this for us, and how much money has he saved us? If there's a quantified amount.
Who can answer that question?
Mr. V?
And Mr. Villarreal? Is he here?
Thank you for the record, Ken Wethy. I've been doing it, we did the RFP for the Blue Cross Blue Shield, and at that time, it was a formal request for proposal for consultant. So that would go back to the year 2007, 2008. And part of my responsibilities is a health plan, and then also I'll be working with y'all on the workers' compensation. We've got that as an issue. And then the supplemental insurance, that's what I work on as well. So it's a retainer so that you've got a budget number, and I agree to do really what you're asking me to do related to those things. I have enumerated in my engagement letter some of the things, but that's not the end. If there's other things that the HR or the Administrative Services Director, I would report to him, would deem to be a project to be worked on.
Okay.
In terms of savings, though, I think is what he wants. I can tell you where we were before, and I can tell you where we are now. And I think just the fund balance number alone is indicative of how much we've saved. But let me have Manuel or Commissioner Gatsa, who was also here at that time, explore that a little bit more, Ken.
Sure.
Unless you have the number in terms of savings.
I don't think there is
know
a
if you can.
number.
I don't know if you can quantify that.
I don't think there is a number, you know. The issue that we had back when we did this RFQ was that we kept having a declining fund balance that caused us to be alarmed because every year we could see that we were digging a hole a little deeper. And, you know, we were increasing our funding level as far as the county was concerned. So we needed help in trying to bring the project together. And the project was going out for RFPs for managing our fund. And Ken came in at that time with the plan and helped us develop that RFQ. We put it out, RFP, we put it out, and since then, we acquired the person or the company that is now doing what we're doing. And I think that if you look at the fund balances from 2007 to the present, you know, we've been able to make some adjustments in the county contribution on an annual budgetary basis to help us with the budget and trying to keep the fund balances in line to where we need it to be. And, you know, I think for $24,000 a year that we pay this gentleman, he's been able to keep us very much aware of where we were on an ongoing basis versus we usually had a problem at the end of the cycle. And all of a sudden, you know, it's like, what are we going to do? You know, I mean,
Right.
so he's, you know, given us the information such as we got this morning, I think is a value that he brings to me more than what have you saved us today? You know, I mean, that's important, but that goes with the negotiations of the company that is doing that service.
What the market is.
Yeah.
No, I understand. I just want to make sure that it's worth it to the county, the tax dollars spent on him. And I'm not saying it's not, but sometimes when we just approve, well, here's another $24,000 contract for the year,
Correct.
you know, can we actually see the benefit? And I think the judge was alluding to that in the fund balance that we can. So it's more for the benefit of the public out there to understand that we're serious about watching our finances.
Manuel,
You
comment?
have to be good stewards. I do have a number for you. The gross gain on Blue Cross before we hit the deficit for this 3 months was $4,251,000. That's where I take. Now, I'm taking numbers from TAC off the administration, and when your actual fund balance, you throw some other expenses in there. But I'm just taking enrollment times rates, less claim, things that are quantitative coming out of experience.
Well, keep in mind as well that when we were adopting this past budget, because of the healthiness of the fund balance, we were able to reduce the contribution to $4,400.
Right.
So that $400, I forget what the number was that ended up saving us, but it helped us balance the budget with no negative impact to the coverage that the employees enjoy.
Exactly. Now, I will say this. Thank you for bringing up the employee coverage. One thing I think we need to look at for the coming plan year is contributions by employees and retirees, because this has been stable for as long as I've been here. Right. And we do know that health costs are rising. And we've got
Well, I tell you, in lieu of not being able to give cost of living adjustments to employees, I think that the last venue should be the employee. And we would try to absorb it as best we can within the existing.
you got a top-notch program.
Thank you. Manuel? And let's wrap this one up so we
Yes,
can move on.
this is something that the health plan has been able to contribute to the deficit by being able to adjust the employee contributions. Besides that, we used to have an agent, and we don't have an agent. That saved us $250,000. So those are things that he brought to the table and has helped our plan. And then now we're at 64% discount, which is unbelievable because health costs are going up, and we see it in the media. And that's our contribution, that's what I think has helped us.
Okay, thank you. Do I hear a motion to approve?
So moved.
By Commissioner Sanchez, second by Commissioner Gatz. Any further discussion? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, carries K. Consideration, sorry.
Thank you.
Consideration authorization to award bid to SPI Seascape, Inc.
The reason I pulled this one is I think I was reading in maybe the contract for this one that we get $500 a month, but we have to provide restrooms. Thought I saw that somewhere in there.
Yes, there's restrooms along the marina. There's 2 restrooms. There's one at next to this business that's leasing the seawall, and then there's a public restroom for the RVs that's right up against it. So it's our building. They maintain it, though. They clean it. They provide
Okay, they maintain and
Yes.
clean the restroom. We just have to provide the structure.
Right, just the structure.
Okay.
Okay, do I hear a
Move
motion to approve by Commissioner Sanchez?
the maintenance
by
them being there.
Correct.
Second by
So moved.
Commissioner Benavides. Any discussion? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, carries. Item L, consideration authorization to approve a credit application.
Why are we requesting credit instead of just paying for stuff? I mean, are we paying interest on?
No, what it is just to open an account with Sutherland's. They just opened in Port Isabel, so it'd be convenient for us to purchase.
Material from them, but we're
But you
not going to
still-
be paying interest on this.
No, it'll just be an account.
Okay.
But
I guess you saw the 29.
I saw 29.99%, and I'm like, why are we going to be paying interest if, we have money budgeted for the year?
Yeah, no, it would just be an account open with them so we could purchase
One check,
through
once a
purchasing department.
Okay.
And you still,
Second.
moved by
And-
Commissioner Benavides, second by Commissioner Gatsa.
And just for clarification, we wouldn't be paying interest on this?
Well, we would if we don't timely pay,
Hey,
like
Okay,
anybody
so
else, but
Can we put some controls in there to make sure that we get these things timely paid? So we don't have to,
well, I would assume that you already have controls in place that allow for timely payment of all our payments,
right.
along with the county auditor and the
auditor,
treasurer,
right.
correct?
well, but we just had to have a special meeting to make a bond payment on something that wasn't paid. So that's why
I-
I'm making sure that, we don't run into these problems, because then paying interest that we don't have to pay is a waste of money.
How much you anticipate spending?
Not a lot. It's more of the convenience if we need nails or we need a board or, because normally we buy large bulk items through Home Depot because they give us an incentive. They give us a money back. The more we purchase, the larger amount that they give us back. But this is just as a convenience,
Okay.
small
Okay,
items.
had a motion, a second, all in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, carries. Item O, consideration authorization to execute a lease agreement between Cameron County and Daniel Bryant.
And that, we had already talked about that.
Okay, do I hear a motion to approve?
So move.
By Commissioner Sanchez and by Commissioner Hernandez, all in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, carries. Item P, consideration authorization to reject bids on uniforms, rental, and cleaning annual bid. Mike,
Can we take up P and Q together?
we can do that. Consideration authorization to utilize the buy board in local co-op.
And basically, what I wanted to point out here, and Mike, you can confirm this, is there had been a bid. Well, why don't you explain it to the court?
The county advertised for bids for uniform services. After receiving the bids, reviewing the bids, the consensus of all the user departments were that they were dissatisfied basically with the services being rendered for county employees in their uniforms currently. The second bid was from a firm called Uniforst, and the bid seemed to be considerably higher. But we also found on the buy board agreement, which is an interlocal cooperative purchasing agreement, that Uniforst was on the buy board at a considerably lower price. So based on the scenario and the situation that we're faced with, the recommendation was to come to the court with the option of rejecting the bids and going with the buy board agreement in its place. And that would be the recommendation of all the user departments and purchasing as
And
well.
as a result, though, it would be at a little higher cost than the lowest bid, correct?
Exactly. It's not a major difference in price, but in checking with the departments, they feel like they can cover those costs within their current budget.
And each of the departments has agreed that they will absorb that cost within their current budget.
Yes, sir.
So it's not going to have an impact on our general fund budget for next year.
No, we were were assured by them that they'd absorb the difference.
Okay.
You know, just out of curiosity, why would they not bid what they have on the buy board?
I think they bid a lot, it's like all these interlocals, they bid a lot more aggressively because of the buying power and the volume associated with the potential to get an award such as that. Usually when they're bidding on the buy board, they see the potential to pick up a lot of cities and counties, so they're much more aggressive than a standalone bid, such as Cameron County by itself.
But on items that we get, you normally check what the buy board costs are when you get the bid anyway.
Exactly.
So, you know, I mean, in this
And-
case, we're just rejecting their bid, but going to the buy board.
And usually.
No, it's a different company.
No, we're talking about UniFirst bid.
Oh, okay, right.
Talking about the UniFirst bid.
Okay,
which
right.
is much higher
Higher
on their bid
than
than the
what they-
buy board.
Right, what they.
You know?
Right, okay, I get you.
A lot of these companies on the buy board, although they're bidding, they let you know that they are on the buy board and what it can do as far as an advantage to the county. So they give you both options, basically. Okay.
Okay, do I hear a motion to
So
approve
moved.
items P and Q by Commissioner Sanchez, second by Commissioner Hernandez? All in favor, signify by saying aye. Any
Aye.
opposed? Carries. Item S, consideration and authorization to award bids on armored car services.
Did we only have one person that bid on this?
Yes, sir,
Okay.
Rochester, and consistently, it seems like we always get Rochester bidding on our armored car. The last time we bid this a few years back, we got another company that was interested, but when they asked for copies of our current rates, I think they became a little gun shy and stepped away and didn't submit.
Okay, and Mike, it says that they will cover all services in the county.
That's correct, sir.
I know that there's some JP offices that don't use the armored car service currently. If we were to add them, would it increase this cost, or is it just a blanket contract for anybody we have?
It's by pickup location. So if a JP wants to be added in, they'll give us a rate for him as well, based on the location.
So like, let's say they go to the tax office in Harlingen anyway to pick up, and there's 2 JP offices there. Is it gonna cost us more to add those 2
No,
JP
sir.
offices?
Not if it's one location.
Okay,
One stop,
okay.
by stop.
Move to approve.
Moved by Commissioner Sanchez, second by Commissioner Benavides. Any further discussion? All those in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Carries. Item T, consideration and authorization to award bids on jail system food services.
Reason I pulled this is I didn't have any backup. All I had was an evaluation sheet where they, committee recommended Aramark, but was there more than one bid, or?
Only one, sir.
Okay.
Do I hear a motion by Commissioner
So moved.
Garza, second by Commissioner Sanchez? Any further discussion? All those in favor, signify by saying aye. Any
Aye.
opposed? Carries. Item X, the travel item to San Antonio to discuss economic development. Did you pull that one?
No, I pulled the Y.
Okay, that's with the change, okay.
You
Item
changed that.
Y, DA office, Commander Luis Carlos and a whole bunch of other folks going to Corpus Christi on February 21st for the sharing intelligence meeting. That should be interesting. Commissioner, you pulled that?
The reason I pulled this is it's a one-day meeting from 9 to 5, and I believe there's 2 nights of travel. And I didn't know if there was any justification for,
Well,
2 nights
I
to
think it's
Corpus?
2 separate travels. I think what I'm reading on the agenda is 221 to 222, and then there's a 221 to 223 on the agenda item. Who's here to address that from the DA's office? Anybody here? All right, so what do you want to do? You want to refuse the travel because they're not here to explain it, or what do you want to do?
well, there's Sam. He just walked in. Maybe he can shed some light. Sam, there's a travel item, 3Y, for a HIDA meeting in Corpus on the,
February 21st through the 23rd.
right, but from what I see here, and maybe I didn't read it correctly, but it's a one-day 9 to 5. Is there any reason why we would need 2 nights of hotel or 3 days of travel?
I think the hotel deal was, I know it's 2 nights, and it was to drive up, and I think there's a reception for the whole group, and then the 2 days of the actual meeting.
So the meeting is 2 days?
Yes.
Okay.
Well, I know that the commander has to be there for 2 days because he's making a presentation.
Oh, and that's why his is 21 to the 23rd.
Right.
Okay, and the others are just going one night?
Correct.
Okay. The other thing, do all these people have a county vehicle that's assigned to them?
No.
No?
They'll be sharing.
These are
driving
HIDA.
up there.
Aren't these HIDA folks?
They don't, they are, but the only person who really has an assigned vehicle is the commander.
Okay, so can he take his vehicle so we don't have to pay this mileage?
But we're not paying it. It's the HIDA program that's paying it. General fund is not paying this.
Okay, well, move to
Do
approve
I hear-
then.
Second.
Thank you. Do I hear a motion by Commissioner Sanchez, second by Commissioner Benavides? All in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, carries. Item double A, Health Department staff to travel to Austin, Texas on 22931.
We can take up double A and double B, and the only question I have there is, again, do these employees have county vehicles assigned to them that they can use in lieu of, us paying mileage out of the travel fund? That was my only question.
Double A, I know that I do not have a county vehicle assigned to me.
Okay, so,
Okay, do I hear a motion to approve double A?
So moved.
By Commissioner
Second.
Benavides, second by Commissioner Sanchez. All in favor, signify by saying aye. Any
Aye.
opposed, carries. Double B.
I was gonna take my own vehicle, but since Pete's going to the session,
All right, do you want to just go with that change? Do I hear a
Yes.
motion to approve?
so move.
By Commissioner Benavides and by Commissioner Sanchez. Any discussion? All those in favor, signify by saying aye. Any
Aye.
opposed, carries. Double C. Pay Walmart invoice 97508 without a purchase order. Who's here from the sheriff's office? Come on up. Yeah, well, I think Commissioner had I read the agenda item, I understood it, in terms of you didn't have a PO. It was mainly to document that you got a contribution or donation from Walmart.
Yes,
Is that the backup?
Yes, Judge.
Unless you have another question, Commissioner.
No, basically, just to clarify, this was money that is not coming out of the county funds, but we had to put it through because it was a donation.
Correct. Well, it was
Okay.
on the agenda backup that it was a donation,
They
so
gave
there
us
was no
money.
county fund. Do I hear a motion to
So
approve?
moved.
So,
By Commissioner
second.
Benavides, second by Commissioner Sanchez. Any discussion? All those in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, item carries. Is Commissioner Quintanilla here yet? Okay. I'll tell you what, before we go into the action items, Pete, did you want to take that item because you need to leave? Double D? I didn't pull that one out.
Wasn't that pulled out?
Double
Which
D?
one?
Double D?
No,
No.
I thought it was double B and C.
No,
Not D?
No, we're done.
no, we're,
So the air conditioners are bought, okay, good.
Okay, in waiting for Commissioner Quintanilla, I got two public comments that were late. It's regarding the same issue, and that's Road 408 in La Paloma. Because it's the same issue, would you both, who's here? ¿Quién va a platicar sobre esto? Y como están hablando de la misma cosa, si gusta nada más una puede platicar.
yeah.
Y
That's the road on the agenda.
Ya, este es el camino que está atrás del Leal
Sí,
y realmente va como de Espinosa al sur. Es una parte que lleno de pozos,
correcto.
right? Okay. Ese está en la agenda para discutir al ratito, pero usted está en favor de que se arregle, ¿verdad?
Correcto.
Claro, okay.
Correcto. Este sí es un acceso que está ahorita deteriorado, ahorita con estas lluvias recientes ya no hay entrada. Ese acceso se necesita porque atrás de esa calle se hizo una subdivisión que se llama Valle del Ciprés y es una de las calles principales también para entrar para atrás, pero como ahorita está en construcción la calle Leal, entonces la gente se arriesga mejor a pasar por la 408 Road porque está en construcción y ahorita no hay modo ya de entrar porque está demasiado deteriorada la calle.
Okay. Vamos a platicar de ese camino en la agenda un poquito más al ratito, ¿pero qué?
Ok.
Ok, gracias señora por participar. Okay, well, let's go to the presentation A. Marta, or Javier, that's your show. Discussion and acknowledgement of consulting services agreement, report titled Cameron County Cost Stabilization and Effectiveness Study.
Good morning, Judge Commissioners. The Commissioners Court had entered into an agreement with MGT to do a cost study on a number of county departments. I have Ms. Wagner with MGT. Ms. Wagner will present a PowerPoint on that. With her also are two of her associates, George Vos and Tom Roth, that did that were instrumental in doing the jail study as well. And first of all, I would like to thank the departments for their cooperation. They were key to getting this study done, and I thank MGT for their perseverance and their patience in getting this study finished.
All right, thank you. And yeah, I want to see we all want to see it, but I just have as you're making the presentation, I want you to think about, I read the report, and there's a lot of recommendations. Some you indicated that could be done within the existing resources, and those are the easy ones. The other ones, I would like at some point to get an estimate dollar range of what it would cost to implement some of the concerns that were brought out of the report. That way, the department heads or elected officials can start working on that for the next budgetary cycle to see if we can possibly implement some of this. And thank you as well for the work that you did.
Judge, I appreciate your comments, because one of the things we'd like to do, I'm going to give you a little bit of an overview of how we approached the study. There were 4 departments, and one of them in particular, jail operations, had the bulk of the findings and recommendations with some potential good impact for cost stabilization or cost reduction. And so we're going to introduce the report and how the process was done. And then I'm going to let the jail gentlemen, the team that worked on the jail part, George Vos and Tom Roth, go through that, because I think they're prepared to respond to some of those questions today. And then if there's time left and you want me to go back to some of the other departments that had the easier ones and could be more easily implemented, I can address those. But I'd like to give most of the time to the jail piece today, if that's possible. As I mentioned, we're just going to give you an overview of the study and a brief description of the process that we use to collect the data and gather the information, and then present the findings and recommendations in the report. When you contracted with us to do this study, you may recall that there was some discussion of which departments to include, and the final decision that was reached at a meeting here on June 23rd, 2011 was to look at building maintenance, the tax assessor collector's office, courthouse security, and jail operations. So the purpose of that was to look at these and determine if there were any cost containment opportunities, which often come based on operational improvements. So even though we're looking at cost reductions and cost stabilization, we do a high-level overview of processes in those departments, because a lot of times the savings come in improvements to the way business is done. Just some bullets on how we approach our study and our methodology, so everyone is on the same page about how we approach this. One of the first things we do is gather and analyze data from each of the departments, and the auditor's office helped us as well. A data request is very important for the quantitative information, and we look for a lot of budget information, workload measures, operational processes, and so on. We also often look and analyze what we call to be peer data, to provide a comparative analysis of key elements of operations with select other Texas counties that have similarities in operations for those departments. And we did that to some extent with each of the areas. We did spend time on site with each of the 4 departments, and we had teams of 2 that came. I do want to reiterate what Ms. Galarza said. Every department was very helpful. They were very cooperative. They made themselves available for interviews. They showed us around. We traveled with them. We looked at everything. And we really had very, very good cooperation from all 4 departments. We conducted interviews with key personnel and also spent quite a bit of time with your county auditor on a lot of this information. We then prepared findings and recommendations for courthouse security first, because you had asked us to submit those a little bit before the rest of the report. back in September when you were looking at making some changes in how you deployed staff and so on. So that was prepared and sent to you earlier. But then in October, we finished up and did a full draft assessment report with findings and recommendations and gave you a period of time to review that and respond if you had any questions or comments. And we did get written responses from the tax assessor collector, building maintenance, pretrial services, and looked at those and made adaptations to the report based on their feedback. And then we're here to present the final report today. I'm now going to turn over to the jail operations section, since we want to make sure we have enough time for that. And then when that's over, if you want us to spend some time on the other areas, we're happy to do that as well. But as the judge mentioned, a lot of those are implementable with existing resources and are a little bit easier. This is really the meat of the report.
Members of the court, my name is George Vos. The jail evaluation team consisted of myself and Tom Roth, who will be speaking with you in a moment. We visited the various jail units and met with sheriff's staff on September 6th, 7th, and 8th. We visited the 4 jail units, met with available commanders, supervisors, staff, the sheriff, his chief deputy, and the jail administrator to discuss the various issues related to jail management, overcrowding, and potential efficiencies. First of all, I want to say that the cooperation we received was tremendous. Everyone was very open and candid and helpful, allowing us to do our work. We were particularly concerned with the overcrowding the county has faced, which has resulted, or at the time had resulted, in the transfer of many detainees to other jurisdictions in order to maintain compliance with the Texas Jail Commission standards. At considerable cost to the county. As you know, the majority of the offenders in the county facilities are pretrial felons and misdemeanors. When you factor out the federal detainees that are housed, it's roughly 53% of the population. We examined the budget issues related to the jail system and how the facilities are staffed. Throughout our analysis, we were interested in identifying efficiencies and cost containment strategies. Slide 10, which is up before you, speaks to the challenges that you all face. None of this should come as a surprise. Overcrowding and census growth is the biggest problem, forcing the opening of housing units, management of housing units, and the outsourcing of prisoners, again, at considerable cost. Secondly, economies of scale present a challenge to you in that you're forced to duplicate services. You're running 4 jail facilities as opposed to 1 or 2, which results in duplication of services. You have duplicate laundries, you have duplicate kitchens, you have duplicate administrative staff. All of that drives up the cost of a correctional operation. Secondly, the Texas Jail Commission requirement that 1 detention officer supervise no more than 48 inmates has been a challenge, or at least at the time of our visit, was a particular challenge, as the rosters reflected a difficulty. As hard as the staff tried to staff those units, they just didn't have the available personnel. And other regulatory requirements also impacted the ability to comply. Although I understand you're currently in compliance, issues such as overcrowding and physical plant and classification do affect your ability to comply on an ongoing basis, and that challenge isn't going to go away. Fourthly, staffing and turnover is an issue which provides difficulties for you to comply, in that posts can't be filled when staff are unavailable for duty. This, in part, appears to be related to strategies which, again, knowing the challenges that you face with your budget, is due to the salaries that are not necessarily commensurate to those private facilities in the region and some other counties, causing some of the staff to move on to other entities for employment where they can get a better pay and benefits. Next, in terms of challenges, is the management information systems. Now, I know that you are in the process of implementing what they call the Odyssey MIS system, or jail management system. That hopefully will allow you to extract data as to length of stay, bail amounts, so that you can analyze your population and make better determinations as to who's eligible for pretrial release and the like. But up until this point, that challenge has been a problem for you, in that your MIS system does not allow you to gather and analyze data. And lastly, on the challenge front is the issue of roster management. The jail staff, again, in September, and they've done some work since we've left, which I think Tom will speak to. There was not a roster management in place which identified all staff, their days off, leave time, and assignments. The one-page assignment sheet that was utilized as of September does not provide all the necessary information regarding personnel assignments. Tom will speak more about staffing. That was his focus in a bit. Let's see. The inmate census in Cameron County is somewhat higher than the average in the state of Texas. And I'm sure there's lots of reasons for that, but in terms of looking at census management issues, if you had a lowest incarceration rate in the region, then you would question, well, are there things that we can do from a pretrial services standpoint or a diversion standpoint that might impact the census? The fact that you're above the average suggests that there's some possibilities that can be dealt with. One of the issues that affects your census problem is the issue of case processing. Delays in case processing result in extended stays in jail, which could be reduced if efficiencies were implemented. The magistrate's hearings, which we observed taking place, is one method of providing relief, and that appears to be an excellent program that's in place at the jail. However, the need for 60 or so habeas corpus hearings on a weekly basis suggests that the case processing is not as efficient or doesn't flow as quickly as it possibly could. So that's an area that we would suggest you look at, is case processing and expediting the movement of cases. We spent some time with Kevin Sains of the pretrial office, who had indicated to us that there's some work going on currently for direct filing of police reports and automating of the system, which hopefully will lead to better expediting of cases. The mechanics of criminal justice, such as preparing and filing of arrest reports and in processing cases through prosecutors' offices, can often take time due to the use of these manual systems. So the mechanics of criminal justice can help overcrowd your facilities. So we would suggest to you that look at things like automating your police reports, possibly using case expediters. Those are like case managers who evaluate the offenders who can be released on an ongoing basis. Those kinds of actions, some of which you've already taken, but going forward, even more aggressive or more robust program might be effective.
You didn't put a percentage to the pretrial services or the case processing in regards to what percentage of the population are in jail because of those issues? You didn't go that detailed?
The data wasn't, we weren't able to extract the data. And I think one of the reasons why we think hopefully the Odyssey system will provide more detail so you can conduct an analysis of length of stay, bail amounts.
Reasons why.
Reasons why,
yeah.
Movement of cases. We couldn't get at the data as it existed. In fact, while we're at the jail, they were in the process of implementing Odyssey. So we haven't been back since September, so we just don't know the success.
But you did isolate the fact that because the cases aren't processed fast enough is a result of why all these inmates are there for such an extended period of time.
It is one factor that has to be looked at. And what you'll see in the next recommendation that I'm going to offer here is that one of the things that has been done across the country to address situations like this is putting together a coordinating council, prosecutors, judges, jail officials, pretrial services folks, defense attorneys, to work together, in law enforcement, of course, to work together to identify those factors that result in extended lengths of stay which overcrowd your institutions. So,
but again, they would need the mechanism to identify those factors that we did not have in place before. I mean, it's like you couldn't go and identify, you know, the percentage of people that were there for X reason.
But we can see your general categories. 53% of your population are pretrial, when you factor out the feds.
Which is a large segment.
That's a large segment. And a number of those are misdemeanors. A number of them, now keep in mind, there's some symptomatic issues going on here. The fact that you're running 60 habeas corpus hearings a week suggests that defense attorneys are filing because cases aren't moving fast enough. Those, I mean, it's a great program to have these hearings on site at the facility. But if you're not processing the cases fast enough, then obviously the defendants are not going to be filing for habeas corpus hearings.
Yeah, the only reason they're asking for one is because they're waiting.
That's right.
Right. Typically on a misdemeanor, if the person's been incarcerated 30 days, they're entitled to habeas relief.
That's right.
On a felony, it's 90 days, which shouldn't take that long to process that case. But I guess compared to other studies you've done in other counties our size, how do the habeas filings compare?
The habeas filings here appear to be symptomatic of a larger problem. That's why we are suggesting, and again, in meeting with the judges, the judge that we met with, the pretrial services folks, they indicated to us that these case expediting is an issue. Late filing of police reports is an issue. Inability of the prosecutors to have their cases prepared on a timely basis because of these other issues are all impacting the length of stay. That's what we were told. That's what we learned.
Okay, but do you have a comparison? Have you studied other counties our size?
I don't have evidence here of specific counties that I can relate to you, other than we looked at the symptomology that is suggesting that these issues are resulting in extended length of stay.
Okay, so you can't tell us whether we're the norm or if we're way behind the norm in terms of, because one thing I've heard is that we have more habeas filings in Cameron County than anywhere else in the state.
Yeah, that could very well be the case. I can't answer that question in the affirmative.
Okay.
So what we're recommending is that you look at a more aggressive program of coordinating between the various entities of criminal justice to try to identify these issues and possibly put into place some systems such as automated direct entry of police reports, case expediters, and other programs that will result in moving the cases faster, getting some of these bails or getting some community release or pretrial service released accelerated. You've got 3 people plus a director working in pretrial services now. They do a great job with appointment of counsel and the reduced bond program. But you're limited in terms of pretrial supervision. You're limited in terms of, GPS, home confinement, some of these other things that you can do to reduce your pretrial population, which reduces your inmate census, which reduces your cost. And this is really what we're looking at for you, is trying to provide you some ideas that would result in a reduced length of stay.
Have you seen any other counties that use day reporting centers?
Day reporting, home confinement, pretrial supervision, many of these programs are used all over the country.
And then is an effective tool to decrease the cost?
It is proven to, and study upon study suggests, I was reading a study this morning, as a matter of fact, for Baltimore, New York, and Baltimore, New York City, and Washington, D.C., the impact of pretrial services on their inmate population. Obviously, it's a very different environment in these larger cities, but even in a small county where you lack these substance abuse program, mental health programming, where inmates can be detainees can be diverted to, these programs can prove to be very effective at reducing your costs. And frankly, the census drives your costs. You know that. I mean, the jail is a very expensive program, and if you can look at ways of economizing by reducing your census, by you know, we get the economies of scale issue, consolidating your jails into, you know, instead of having 4 jails, having something less than 4 jails. All of that will reduce your cost. If you can free up beds, and again, I'm getting a little ahead of myself here, but that's okay in the interest of time, but if you can free up beds, that gives you the opportunity to go to the U.S. Marshal Service and possibly get a larger contract for more inmates, which brings in more revenue.
Only if it's for more money.
I'm sorry?
Only if it's for more per diem, okay?
Right.
That's also
The last contract didn't work out that great.
Well, that's also in my presentation. One of the problems with that is you entered into a cap agreement where you accepted construction money for a lower per diem. That was done with a 15-year guarantee. I know you've increased the per diem since then through negotiations, but still it's, I think, what, $10 less than your actual per diem? Right. Somewhere in that range?
So more.
I think it was like 36 versus 46. Yeah. Martha would be able to answer that. I'm going to skip ahead in the interest of time. I spoke about the U.S. Marshal contract, that you should explore the feasibility of renegotiating. Again, when you have the space, you don't have the space right now, but when you have the space, trying to renegotiate, you know, using your congressman, your senator, and local representatives to try to see if you can get that per diem raise more consistent with your actual operating costs. Video conferencing is another option. As of September, you're utilizing video conferencing 1 day a week. We would suggest you expand that program because it can reduce your transportation costs. You're currently transporting inmates back and forth to the court at fairly significant cost to do that.
You didn't mention it in here, but do you think having an actual court at the jail would be better than the video conferencing?
Many jurisdictions, in fact, we're doing some work in Arizona currently. In Phoenix, for example, they're running court, I think, until from 9 in the morning till 8 or 9 at night. And they've got 2 different courts going. They've got JP court, they've got a Phoenix court going. Wherever you can bring the courthouse to the jail is going to have an impact on your transportation costs, no question about it. The habeas hearings are taking place at the jail currently.
Well, but I'm talking more of, for example, Hidalgo County has auxiliary courts where the presiding judges of each individual court can send cases to be heard by that court, and it's usually jail cases that they'll send over. And that's actually within the complex of the courthouse, but I'm saying if we had an auxiliary court, if we were to be able to create one, would that have a significant impact as opposed to some of these video conferencing?
Both will do this. Actually, having a court at the jail facility is probably more effective than video conferencing.
Okay.
Probably more effective. The last issue that I want to touch on, again, I'm jumping around, is the issue of the privatization option. And is it 14? Oh, there it is. Okay. A number of counties in Texas and across the United States have evaluated the benefit of privatizing. Now, we're not recommending that you privatize. We're recommending you consider the option. The option typically is driven by cost considerations and to improve efficiency, as private operators are not necessarily constrained by government bureaucracy, and they're able to make operational decisions that add to the efficiency of that operation. I'll just give you some examples. For those counties in Texas that are privatized, pension costs go away, except for those that are grandfathered in, because the private operator typically has a 401k program. So the government pensions are not offered going forward. The cost of liability insurance becomes the private vendor's responsibility. And as you know, your liability insurance is much higher than it normally would be if you weren't running jails. That is typically the same thing with workers' compensation insurance. The budget we saw was $317,000 goes towards workers' comp insurance. Pensions, $823,000. Liability insurance, $185,000. With privatization, the private operator takes full responsibility based on the per diem that you negotiate. You negotiate a per diem of X number of dollars. They're responsible for the 401ks, the liability insurance, the inmate health care costs, all of the things, and the overtime, which is something that you struggle with every year, as I understand it. That goes away. You negotiate a per diem, the per diem is fixed, the operator has to comply. Not only do they have to comply in terms of your budget, but they also have to comply in terms of the Texas Jail Commission requirements. If they don't have a 1:48 ratio, they fail the Jail Commission. That failure impacts their ability to be successful in working with you. So privatization doesn't work for everybody, but it does provide you with an option to reduce your costs or control your costs, especially where you're having problems with some of the runaway costs with outsourcing of offenders and other issues that affect your overtime, for example, is another area. So we would suggest that, that is an area that if in your deliberations you wish to examine it further, there are folks out there that would be willing to talk to you about that option, private operators. So with that, I will turn it over to Tom Roth, who's going to speak to you of roster management and staffing. And if you have any questions of me,
I do have a question before you turn it over to him. I did read in your report about changing the shift schedule to 12-hour shifts.
Yes.
Do you think in a jail environment that would work better?
I personally would recommend that you look at the 12-hour shifts really hard. Again, that's Tom's area of study, and yeah, I think you'll find, based on his presentation, that there's some value in that for you.
Okay. Does anybody have any questions regarding this part? No. Okay. Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Good morning, Judge, Commissioners. Thanks
Morning.
for the opportunity. My name's Tom Roth, and my focus is going to be about the staffing levels. And Commissioner, I'm going to address your issue about the 12-hour schedules. But it has to do with efficiencies on operating facilities. And what do you need?
One question.
Yes,
Have
sir.
you presented your report already in its details to the Sheriff's Department?
I've had conversations with the jail command staff as recently as today. So in respect to that, I thought our conversations went well. As a matter of fact, some of the recommendations that we submitted, they have implemented.
Okay.
And I'm going to talk a little bit about that, sir.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, excuse me.
It's my understanding that when we submitted the draft report in October, each department got their report because we asked for feedback, and that's when we heard back from the assessor collector and building maintenance and so on. And we did get a little bit of feedback from pretrial services. So they did see the draft and had the input to give us comments and feedback, which Tom's going to address now.
Okay.
Initially, when we were here in September, we took a look at the staffing levels that they had out at the jail and took a look at what the budgeted level was. And the budgeted level at that time matched what the staffing level actually was. And so you had a number of 349 that was budgeted, and you had an actual number of about 349 at that particular time. And so when we looked at that, we realized the fact that there was a possibility that the staffing level was based on funding, not necessarily based on what the responsibilities are. And when you take a look at that, when you look at the mission of the jail, one of the things you got to take a look at is how many staff do I need in order to accomplish my mission, get my job done. And one of the ways you go about doing that is by doing what is called a post-analysis. And a post-analysis is something that we're recommending, and we're recommending that the county take a look at the post-analysis, and when you do that, you also include a representative from the auditor's office as part of that team. It should not be simply jail personnel identifying what the staffing needs are. It ought to be also county personnel having some impact in that, and some involvement in that. When you look at post-analysis, the things you got to look at is, what do I need to do in order to get the job done? What are my responsibilities? The other things that you got to take a look at are, what are some of the federal mandates, the state mandates, and the county mandates that are out there that I need to take a look at? One of those things that we were mentioning earlier today had to do with the Commission on Jail Standards, the Texas Commission. And they talk about issues like every inmate has to be, you have to have a face-to-face with every inmate at least once every hour. And some of those high-risk people, you got to have a face-to-face every 30 minutes. You've got to have one officer for every 48 inmates. So there's some standards out there. But one of the things that the county jail does is they do a lot of things that are considered nationally best practices. And those national best practices are things like when you're moving high-risk inmates from one location to the next, oftentimes that the 1:48 ratio doesn't necessarily apply. What you want to do is you want to operate a safe environment. And that safe environment says that you ought to have some policies out there that if one individual is combative, is going to be, it has been a threat to our staff, then there ought to be 2 or maybe even 3 people escorting that person from one location to the other. The Texas Commission on Jail Standards does not take that in consideration. What your jail does and your jail command staff does, they have policies out there that address issues like that. So you're going to see that there's going to be a little bit of a difference between what the commission says you need and what you actually need to operate if you want to be consistent with national best practices. The other things that you have to take a look at is who needs to get the job done? When I take a look at things like being your PBX operator, do I need an officer there? Or can a clerical person fulfill that responsibility? When I'm back there working in the laundry, does a laundry officer need to be an officer or can it be a civilian person? When I take a look at things like maintenance, we've got an individual who's a maintenance supervisor. Basically, he's a detention officer. Is that person more appropriate to be a maintenance supervisor, or should that person be a detention officer? You have to take a look at the position classifications. One of the other things you look at on a post-analysis is the activity schedule, does it make sense? Does it work for the public? Let's say, for example, are we operating visits at a time that both meets the public demand as well as an efficient way to go about doing it? Are we running recreation at 3 o'clock in the morning? Are we running recreation? When are we operating our activities? And so when you're taking a look at a post-analysis, you got to look at operational efficiencies. You got to look at activity efficiencies. Another thing you take a look at, Commissioner, is the work schedule. In order to get all that stuff done in the most effective and efficient way possible, what you need to do is you say, how do I schedule people? A lot of counties will run across situations where everybody wants to work Monday through Friday, and nobody wants to work the afternoon shift, and you don't have enough people on Saturday and Sundays. And so you have overtime, and that's how you fulfill that responsibility. What we found here was pretty balanced. That was not necessarily the case. But when you look at work schedules, the key issue that we found here in Cameron County was the fact that the Personnel Policy Manual says that you can work 171 hours in a 28-day period. That's what the manual guideline says. What we found in doing our study was the fact that staff were scheduled to work 165 hours in that 28-day period. So you've got the policy that says 171, you've got people scheduled 165. You take that 6-hour difference, you multiply that by 281 security personnel, and it ends up being, and you have 13 pay periods, it ends up being about 21,000 hours difference. So what the guideline says you ought to have and what the schedule said, there was a difference of about 21 to 22,000 hours. And so when we look at that, now what people were scheduled is 165 hours. And what is that? That's basically people working 5 days a week with 2 consecutive days off, and they're working 8-hour days. 8.25-hour days because the first 15 minutes, most jails have what they call a pre-shift briefing. You come to work, you get the message of the day, they let you know what's going on, they let you know where your assignment is going to be, and so that's pretty traditional. So that's the first 15 minutes. When you add all that up, it ends up being about 165 hours. When you take away that pre-shift briefing, what it ends up being is that officer is on a security post 160 hours in that 28-day period. Now, if you wanted to adjust your work schedule and you wanted to apply a different work schedule that was consistent with the Department of Labor Fair Labor Standards Act, you can apply a 12-hour work schedule. And the benefit of a 12-hour work schedule is going to allow you to work 170.8 hours in a 28-day period. So if the county says you can work 171, our current schedule is scheduling you for 165. Is there anything else we can do without simply saying, I need more staff, I gotta have more staff? You're already spending $9 million, a little more than $9 million. It's a lot of money. So the answer isn't always just add more staff. One of the things you could possibly do is to take a look at an alternative schedule. Keep in mind the fact that if you're working 12-hour shifts, in that 28-day period, you're going to be on a post 168 hours. Previously, you were on a post for 160 hours. So every officer is going to increase their post coverage, fill that housing post, fill that transport post, fill whatever post that is by 8 hours every 28-day period. There are 13 28-day periods. That's where the bang for the buck is. And let me answer your question. If I don't answer it, please ask a follow-up. 12-hour work schedules, one of the things that makes those things successful is if they're managed properly. If they're not managed properly, what it's going to lead to is a honeymoon period of time where people are excited about the fact that they got 3 days off or 4 days off. And once that excitement and that honeymoon period ends and you get accustomed to that, the big problem with that is backfilling positions, because now you got to backfill a 12-hour post. That's the problem that most people run across. If you don't have the personnel, then when that individual uses that vacation day, uses that holiday time, uses that sick day, is off on training, that generally what happens is you still got to fill that post. And how are you going to fill that post? The problems that people run across in operating 12-hour shifts is they don't schedule them properly. They don't protect that day off. One of the things that the jail command staff has implemented is something that is referred to as a 3-4 schedule. That means you are going to be working 3 days, you're off for 4 consecutive days, then you're going to work 4 days, and you're off 3 days. In all, it ends up being that you're working 7 12-hour days in a 14-day period. That's one of the things that you got to take a look at. Now, when you're working 4 days nationally, what happens is that 4th day, sometimes you got an increase in the number of people that call in. You've already worked 36 hours. Now you got that 4th hour in respect to that. So you got to be a little careful about that. So what you want to do is make certain that you have measures in place to ensure the fact that that individual, he or she, who's worked 4 days in a row, is protected from working 5 days in a row. Some people at Christmas time want to work all the time. They want to build that time up. But the problem with that is the fact that sooner or later they're exhausted. And so the day that they were scheduled to come to work, they're not there. And now you're paying time and a half for that individual to work simply because the schedule didn't work. So you need to have measures that protect the fact put in place that says you can't work over X number of hours. And so that's one of the issues that you run across. If you were looking for a national study about stress and issues like that, what you don't run across on a consistent basis is any study that'll say 12-hour shifts don't work. What you don't want to do is you don't want to have that officer consistently working in the segregation unit. You don't want that officer consistently working 12 hours doing a one-on-one where they're sitting outside the cell with that person who's fragile or who has mental health issues. You need to rotate those shifts. You need to rotate those post assignments so they're better suited for that. Am I answering? I hope I'm answering some of your questions.
Yes. Well, and my biggest concern was on a 12-hour shift, because of the overtime and the absences, are we going to have a bigger impact than we would on your 3 shifts in a day, 3 8-hour shifts?
No, because it all depends, again, about how well it's managed and calling
The
time.
scheduling is what you...
Yeah, the scheduling is a key element there. You should not, because what happens is if you took the same number of post assignments that you have today and you wanted to fill those same responsibilities, what it's going to take is, based upon your 4 facilities, it's going to take approximately 12 fewer full-time detention officers to meet the same responsibilities.
The other thing I think it'll help, I think every time there's a shift change, they have to do a count of all the prisoners. And so it's 3 counts a day, and it would bring it down to probably 2.
Yeah, from an operational standpoint, remember that you're going to have people into those housing units already, and you're going to have them because the law says you're going to have them. To implement that, I'm not going to stand here and say that you ought to only do 2 full-time counts. That would be an operational issue. Other jurisdictions generally would do 3 to 4. I mean, you're in the business of keeping the people that you're supposed to have. And whatever they decide in respect to that, I would recommend that they, if it ended up where they're only doing 1 count a shift, I'd recommend they reevaluate that and possibly increase that. Overall, you're increasing, again, the key element is take the same number of people, simply change the schedule, you're going to increase the post coverage by 5%. I've touched the base a little bit on the 12-hour shifts. Really, it's a way to go, but you got to have those protective measures there. And if you don't use those protective measures, you're going to have a meeting in about a year from now talking about your overtime, because overtime's a key issue there. Another issue I wanted to present from a cost-saving strategy possibly has to do with the Department of Labor Fair Labor Standards Act. And it has to do with when you work an employee, when is the time that overtime comes into play. You know, the Fair Labor Standard Act simply says that if you've identified your work period as 28 days, then overtime doesn't take effect until you've exceeded 171 hours in that 28-day period. One of the things you have the option of doing, if you'd like to do it, is to simply take a look at it, your work period being defined as 14 days instead of 28 days. And if you defined it as 14 days by federal law, it basically says you do not have to pay anybody overtime until they exceed 84 hours, excuse me. No, 86 hours, my fault. So basically, you're increasing the threshold by 1 hour. You guys are using about 1,380 hours of overtime every 28-day period. If you adjusted your work period to be consistent with your pay period, then you'd probably reduce your overtime by about 9 to 9.5%. Last year, you were in a neighborhood of about $500,000 in overtime. May not be a big chunk of change, but when you do small things like that, it may add up. Maybe $50,000 can be used in some other capacity. But basically, when you look at that, again, instead of taking a 28-day work period, which the overtime threshold is 171 hours, create 2 14-day work periods. The overtime threshold is now 86 and 86. You've gained 1 hour. With that 1 hour, you're already working 1,380 hours on average anyhow. You're going to reduce that a little bit. Going to move along. Additional cost-saving measures. We talked a little bit about overtime. One of the things that we found that probably could improve issues has to do with documenting what takes place. We had a difficult time trying to find the reason why everybody was working overtime. We knew the numbers were there. People were getting paid. We could find the names. We could find the hours. But one of the things other jurisdictions do is they clearly identify the reason why and the steps that were taken before overtime was required. We had a difficult time back in September, and in talking to the jail command staff, they've made some strides in respect to documenting that. But one of the things you got to look at is, are we certain that we need to have that overtime, pay that time and a half, or are you doing other things before you do that? Are you closing possible posts? Are you merging post responsibilities when you're allowed to do that? What are you doing in order to ensure the fact that that's a last resort? County shouldn't be paying 1,380 hours of overtime period.
Wouldn't you be able to isolate the fact, though? I mean, if you needed overtime on this particular day, aren't you going to know that someone didn't show up because they called in sick or
it's not always
took
that
vacation
case.
or Or, I mean,
Yeah.
It's illogical.
No, it's not always that easy, Commissioner, because your post responsibilities change. And let me take it, for example, maybe yesterday. Maybe yesterday we ran across a situation, and I don't know this to be the case at all, that I had to provide 1 or 2 detention officers outside at the hospital providing security supervision while that inmate was housed out there. And that may be that's not going to be a daily situation, but that's going to be something that happened today. So now what I've got to do is I want to make certain that if there are posts that I can close, there may be additional responsibilities. There may be a couple people on a suicide watch situation where proper protocol means I need to have somebody watch them on a one-on-one basis. And so that doesn't happen all the time, but it happens. And when it does happen, it's not a matter.
Requires more people.
It what you're doing is you're going to take a risk, and that risk is going to be I can either go ahead and do my business and let that one individual sit in that cell who's already threatened to hurt themselves, who's been banging, and let that go the way it is, or I can take some steps and I can watch them to make certain that individual doesn't do harm to himself or to any of my staff. The other thing is, when I go to the outside hospital, I think everybody wants somebody out there. You got to watch them. And those are the types of responsibilities that sometimes things do in fact change.
So that's probably something we should do countywide, anywhere that overtime is going to be expended. Give reasoning and have each department head say, well, we requested overtime here because of X.
What we're recommending, Commissioner, is that the judge, the commissioners, and anybody else has a recapitulation report at the end of the month. You can clearly identify hours and reason why. What was the reason for that? And in September, we could not figure out why. We knew the names, we knew the dollars, but we were trying to figure out why. And so we did a number of interviews, we started doing other things, and that's how we figured it out.
Do you have any recommendations on what the easiest way would be to capture that data?
First thing I'd do is I'd have a policy in place. I'd create a policy that drives what your practice is going to be. So I'd sit down and I'd write a policy. There'd be steps to take. First, one of the things you do is all post assignments, all positions aren't equal. There are some positions that you got to fill no matter what. There are other positions where maybe there's 3 or 4 people assigned, and maybe you could operate with 2 or 3 instead of 3 and 4. So what I would do is I'd identify post assignments that are, for the lack of a better word, that are called mandatory posts. Posts that you got to fill regardless. And then I would make certain that there's a closure order. That if we do have somebody in the outside hospital, if we had 3 people call in sick, if for some reason something else is taking place, there's a priority order that we close certain posts. I'd take a look at that. Now, when the policy ought to write that, evaluate posts that are currently being staffed. Are there any non-mandatory posts that we can possibly close? What are my reasons for that overtime? Is it something that has to take place now, but it ought to be all in writing? And there are forms for that, sir.
Okay.
You could do that. Just a couple other things. Utilization of time. Again, one of the things that we ran across was because people were working 8-hour shifts and they were working 165 hours in a 28-day period instead of 171. One of the things that we ran across was sometimes people stayed after their shift to complete activity reports or some type of report, or they were staying after, and they were being compensated for that. It was very difficult to identify the frequency where people were what they were doing. Another documentation-driven policy ought to be put in place. Is if an incident happens, people ought to write down and define what took place, especially before their shift is over. And that was taking place. But it was and they were going to be compensated for that. What was very difficult is, where's the paperwork to prove it? It's got to be document-driven. One of the last things I take a look at is the relief factor and the shift relief factor. The shift relief factor is something that was identified by the Texas Commission on Jail Standards. And the shift relief factor is 1.63. And really, the concern that I have there from an cost-effectiveness standpoint is when they determine how many staff you need, they apply a relief factor. Because people are working 5 days a week or 4 days a week now, or let's say 5 days a week, because during the study they're working 5 days a week, that post still needed to be staffed 7 days a week. And so when you look at that, and you look at the fact that it's a 7-day post, and also people use vacation time and sick time, people are involved in training and whatever, then you need more than one person to fill that 8-hour shift. And so what they call it a shift relief factor. The problem that I have with the Texas Commission Jail Standards relief factor is it's the same for here as it is for every county in the state of Texas. I would highly recommend that the county take a look at what the actual work hours are. People are scheduled to work, let's say, 2,088 hours in a year. 1.63 really means, when you do the math, that means it's going to take 1.63 people to fill one 8-hour post. And when you're figuring this stuff out, it's a simple math. I got to fill that post 365 days. I'm going to divide it by 1.63, and what that means to me is that the average employee works 224 days a year. Okay? Take 365 divided by 163, and that's going to mean that I'm scheduled to work 261 days, but I'm there to fill your post 224 days. Take a look at, do your own relief factor. Don't rely on somebody else, because that's going to determine how much overtime you're going to have in play. National average, about 1.67. Difference between a national average and you guys is about 5 or 6 days. So if I went to the county over here, or I went to Arizona, or I went to Chicago, or wherever I went, the national average is going to be about, it's right around 218, 219 days. You guys are saying that they're here 224 days. I wouldn't be surprised if that's not 100% accurate. So when you figure out your post analysis, figure it out based upon what your relief factor truly is,
Yeah, but that's not the
what
post
somebody else.
analysis. I mean, you're not saying they're at their post, you're just saying they're on clocked when you say 224, right?
No, I'm saying that the 224 is they are on a post. Sir, one of the things that's going to happen—
Based on the relief factor.
Based upon this relief factor, 1.63, they're 220. What they can do is get paid, and let's say they're at training today. Let's say they're somewhere else today, but they're not filling one of our posts. That's what. Let's say they're using their vacation time or their sick time. But yeah, they could be on training, but not necessarily on a post. Those are some strategies that we think that might help you folks out from a cost-saving standpoint. The 12-hour implementation, if you manage it correctly, that's about $300,000. The overtime is going to be in the neighborhood of, just if you adjusted your pay period, it's going to be in the neighborhood of about, and this is an annual basis, it's about $50,000 in that ballpark. So those two things alone, doesn't take any more staff. Those are issues that you ought to take a look at. Do a post-analysis, and you may find out that you need a couple more detention officers. However, you're more efficient if these gentlemen continue to use the 12-hour shift and they manage it properly. Sir?
Questions? I've got a few. Well, thank you for the report. I think most of us have taken a look at it. It's very easy to read, it's very understandable, but I guess my question is that some of the things that you were advocating, really it goes back to the elected official. We can develop policies all day long, but it's up to the elected official to implement them. So without their cooperation, all the policies that we may say we're going to do are going to fall on deaf ears unless they want to do that. Is that correct? And then if they don't do it, the question goes back to what the consequence is if they don't. What I'd like to do at this point is, unless somebody has some other questions, is to acknowledge your report today, come back in the next 30 days and have or sooner if we can, have a workshop just for this item alone.
To implement?
Well, to discuss, the implementation. I think there's two phases to this. One of them is any dollars associated with the implementation has to be addressed at budget time. Second one, as you all pointed out, there were some issues regarding many of the recommendations can be implemented with basically no or minimal cost impact. Those can be implemented immediately. I'd like to go back at that workshop, bring the 4 departments that were looked at, and basically give them direction. We want an implementation plan of what you can do without any dollars within the next 60 days, as an example. Anything that's going to require cost, then they need to work with the budget officer or the auditor and determine what those costs are to implement. I was concerned, you mentioned the 21,000-hour issue. To me, based on what I heard from you, that appeared that was 21,000 hours of wasted time? Or what was that number of 21,000 that paying but not getting a bang for the buck?
We're not wasting it.
No,
We're
it's
not there.
it's hours that we're not captivating that we could capture.
Well, to me, that's a waste. I mean, if it's 21,000 hours, is that what I heard?
Yeah, yes, sir. I said if the personnel policy manual says that employees should be working 171 hours in a 28-day period.
Correct. For law enforcement.
For law enforcement.
Correct.
Right.
And the schedule had them working 165 hours.
Well, if you just stop there, I mean, it doesn't take a mathematician to figure that out. And
He figured it out for us.
Yeah, he figured it out for us, and he's not a mathematician, but, you know, if it's 21,000, you just multiply that times the hourly rate, and that's how much money we're leaving on the table. That's what I'm hearing. Is that a fair assessment or not? I mean, tell me if it's not fair. Tell me, you're not
No,
gonna
those were you could get more bang for your buck out of those employees that were scheduled there.
That's what I'm saying.
Yes, sir.
Okay, that's what I'm suggesting. So if you take that times the hourly rate, I mean, that's whatever the number is. So it's significant, because I think this court has long questioned the overtime issue. Coupled with that overtime issue is the fact that by the time, you know, the auditor's office or payroll gets the overtime,
It's been worked.
it's been worked, and we have a duty to pay it.
We owe it.
You know, we owe it, it was worked, and to me, I think there's a difference between, and I don't mean to hurt anybody's feelings, between efficiency and mismanagement. There's two different things there, and this may be a combination of the two, I don't know. So what I'd like to do at this point is, maybe, I don't know, have you all come back if we need to, but for now, acknowledge this report and then do what we said, and maybe come back and maybe not this next meeting, but the following meeting, and have the court give some direction to the departments.
Well, can
All
I,
right?
I want to, you know, if we want to implement any of these recommendations, is it the elected official that does the implementation on a 12-hour shift, or is it this court
No.
that says,
I
we are going to go to a 12-hour shift?
I think it's the elected official. I think I think it's their responsibility. I mean, and again, we go back to, if they don't do what we ask, what's the consequence? So,
Yeah,
but
don't we control the pay periods?
well,
for the county?
we control the pay periods, but we don't. I don't believe that we control the management of the jail.
No, I'm not saying manage the jail. I'm just saying
But
the
it's
pay
well,
period.
but whether it's 12 hours shifts or 8-hour shift, that's a jail. I mean, that's a personnel function that they have to control. But I think without going, I mean, we've already spent over an hour on this one item. I think we just come back and workshop it, and at that point take up all the 4 departments and ask me what they're going to do. Tony, I saw Tony Saguida here. Did you get a chance to look at the report, Tony? You did? Well, if we can schedule it like that and have Tony come back and say, look, in my department, they recommended doing this. I want to hear from them whether it's feasible or not. And if it is, then what are you going to do to implement those?
Judge, I'd like to recommend to this court to take an hour before each of our next regularly scheduled meetings and schedule one department for 1 hour
That's
before
fine.
our
I mean,
regular
whatever,
meeting.
well, that means we're going to do it, it'll take us,
4 weeks.
you know,
said
4
within a
weeks.
month, so let's
Within a
not-
month to have everybody done at the same time. I mean, if they're ready, that's fine. But we can discuss that at a future date. I mean, if you want to do it all in one fregazo, that's fine with me. It doesn't matter to me.
I just wanted to add, because you've heard a lot about the overtime issue with the sheriffs, the jail, that in 2 of the other departments, when we wanted to look at overtime, one of them wasn't keeping track of the overtime in a documented fashion, and another one, we knew how many hours, but not really the reasons why, and there wasn't. So from the overtime standpoint, if you wanted to use our report, you might want to look at those other departments as well.
We're going to look at them all.
I think it's comp time that it was identified in one of the other departments.
I think it was, you may be right, one of them was comp, but the, another one.
The building maintenance
But anyway,
department.
and courthaus security, I believe, was overtime, there
Right.
wasn't documentation.
Right, and then the building maintenance was comp time and in excess of 170 hours accumulated at one time.
Can I say one thing?
Come on up, Mike.
Oh, yeah, yeah.
We took, Commissioners, Judge, we took the draft recommendation, and the first change we made is we implemented the 12-hour shifts the first payroll of December when we could get everyone online. So that has already been addressed. It's been done. We've been doing it since December successfully. Most of the staff, 96% of the staff, like it, enjoy that schedule, and it's working out real fine for us. The other items we will get back to you on. The ones that didn't cost any money, we've already changed those. And I have the reports. I didn't bring them up because I didn't think it was our time to address that. But I just wanted to reassure the court that we did implement the 12-hour shift for all the jail staff.
So we should have done this study a long time ago. We're
Yes,
the ones that
not only
are
should
behind.
not only should we have done it, Commissioner, I believe there's other things that they weren't asked to do that I think if we could ask them to do it in the future, I think could help us out, really beneficial, be beneficial to the county and to our department as well. Especially these two gentlemen here, they've brought a lot of insight, and there's a lot of ideas that they can bring to the table that I think would make a big difference in the next planning for the next 5 to 10 years.
So then, Mr. Leonard, we did not need to change any personnel policies for you to be able to do what you did?
No, sir. We took the recommendation. We looked at it. We called a bunch of counties in the United States and asked how it worked for them. They said it worked, fairly well, and we did it. The 171 issue and the 165, that hour thing, we revisited that a long time ago with staff and such, and the county had. I have to do research on that, why they went to that 171. It used to be 160, but perhaps Ms. Galarza can, in the next couple of meetings, and Mr. Hodge can assist me in putting together why we went to the 171.
Well, let me do this so we can wrap this particular issue out. I mean, it warrants a lot more discussion than what we have time for today. Pete, when you get back, the departments that were looked at, schedule with them, and I think Commissioner Gatza's thought about doing it. It's a good idea.
I mean,
get with them and see if if they will be ready for the next meeting in terms of in 2 weeks, and we can have a workshop the day of the meeting at 8:30 or 9 or something to do that. Okay, and let them know when they're ready, and we'll just take it from there.
Judge, I have one question for Mike Leonard. Along with implementing the 12-hour shifts, are you all also documenting the reasons for any overtime?
We took every one of the recommendations, and I have the packets downstairs. I'll make sure you all get them to your offices by the end of the day. We implemented everything that they suggested as far as the overtime sheets. It has to be approved by a supervisor and a mid-level manager. We're not going to stop the overtime because, like they recommended, someone might be in the hospital and we might have to send 2 people, or someone gets arrested and brought straight to the hospital, and we have to guard those people, and we don't know when those factors are coming up. But where we could streamline and we could be effective, according to that report, we've implemented that.
Thank you.
And you'll have
and those would be as needed, as you mentioned, post assignments. Because, somebody goes into the hospital, you can't plan for that.
Exactly. Or there may be a real large court docket with a lot of, dangerous folks, attending court.
Depending on the classification.
Exactly. So we may have to, every day it's all fluid, so, we modify our schedule accordingly.
Great. Well, Mike, tell the sheriff we appreciate him jumping right on this and taking advantage of the tool that we've given y'all.
Right. And if we could, if the court, if we could ever budget these, they really did a great job, and there's good things that they can bring to the table, helping us, liaison, assisting us, and
I'm sure that, I know that I, for one, would not have a problem if you wanted to use some of those asset forfeiture funds to fund another study.
If I could, you'd have to ask
$6 million.
Captain Reyna, Captain Reyna handles that. That's
I'll move to approve that.
All right, let's. There is no second. Okay, Pete, you got your marching orders? Okay. Can we do that? All right. Do I hear a motion to, anything else that you want to ask? No? Do I hear a motion to acknowledge the report by Commissioner Sanchez, second by Commissioner Gatza? All in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, carries.
Judge, can we go real quick to item 4C? Judge Leal is here to address that item.
Does it need to be addressed?
I don't know.
Okay, all right, just consideration and approval to increase slot number 43, Department 14350, Trial Court 2817. Martha, real quick.
Judge, Commissioners, this is an increase to that particular slot, which would bring the salary to $35,000. Judge Nelson has agreed to fund $2,400 of that increase from his drug court program, his generated program income that they have in
Is
that.
it just for this fiscal year, or is it going to be for the subsequent budget year as well?
He's willing to contribute up to $2,400 per year, so long
Okay.
as the program is there.
All right.
Motion to approve.
Moved by
Second.
Commissioner Hernandez, second by Commissioner Sanchez. Any further
Aye.
discussion? All those in favor? Discussion?
Now what?
No, the only discussion that I had was to advise the court that there will be no cost to general fund for this fiscal year because we have the number of pay
salary.
periods. No, it's the
No.
number of pay periods involved is 16.6. So that would, the increase, if effective, if approved, would be take effect tomorrow, and the cost for this
Would be covered by the transfer.
would be $2,100, so it will be covered
Got
by
it.
the drug court program.
All in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, carries. Thank you. Let's go back to the drainage issue. Presentation, discussion on drainage improvements along Business 83 and surrounding drainage outfalls in the vicinity of the Cameron County, Hidalgo County line.
Judge,
I want to
Commissioner
welcome
Joel
Commissioner
Quintanilla.
Joel Quintanilla here from Hidalgo County. And I think you've got members of his staff, Mr. Eddie Gonzalez, Cindy de la Cruz, from his staff. And welcome, Commissioner.
Honorable Judge Cascos, Commissioners, thank you so much for allowing us and giving us this time to present to you all today. It's truly an honor and a privilege to be here with you all on such a beautiful day. Got a little rain on the way up here, but it seems to clear up. As soon as we got into Brownsville, it cleared up. How do you like that?
Of course, sunshine.
That's a standing order from this court.
There you go. And I do have to commend each and every one of you on such a beautiful courthouse. You know, our courthouse is over 100 years old, and I don't know what the age of this one is, but it's really beautiful.
Well, some of your members have been there since construction of the court as
Is
well,
that-
so
Probably.
I can name one.
Probably. But I have to tell you, you know, I often watch you all on your, as you televise your meetings to learn from you all, right? And you really can't appreciate it on television like you do in person, and this is really a beautiful facility. So I commend you. We are here before you to present our Ditch 23 project, Judge, Commissioners. And basically that has to do some drainage outfalls involving Hidalgo County and the great Cameron County as well. This drainage outfall, Ditch 23 project, actually consists of 3 miles of drainage areas, half a mile being in Hidalgo County and 2.5 miles being in Cameron County. We've been very blessed and fortunate that we've received some state and federal funding commitments from TxDOT in the order of about approximately $13.3 million. And about $3 million of this would go into this drainage outfall to actually clear up, clean up, and increase the hydraulics of this drainage Ditch 23 that involves Cameron County and Hidalgo County. We're very aware that the majority waters would be coming from Hidalgo County flowing into Cameron County. So we would greatly appreciate your assistance. And we're here to present this project to you and hoping that you'd consider cooperating with us in purchasing the right-of-ways and land acquisition that we would need to expand this drainage outfall, which is approximately, I would say, about $1.5 million between both counties. So I'll go ahead and turn over to our presenters to go ahead and take over. Mr. Garza, this is Godfrey Garza. He's our Drainage District #1 Director.
Thank you very much, Commissioner. Appreciate it. Judge, Commissioners, I appreciate the opportunity to come before you and present this item. Commissioner Quintanilla, working with Commissioner Dan Sanchez, is looking at developing this particular project. The original reason for this project to come into play is that TxDOT, which we do have a representative here, is looking at investing about $13 million in completing Business 83 improvements, which require some additional outfalls to be made from Business 83 and Expressway 83 South, which overlaps the western boundary of Cameron County and the easternmost boundary of Hidalgo County. TxDOT's main impact on this item, as Commissioner is saying, is that they will provide all the dollars associated with the construction of the structures itself. What they're asking for the commissioners from Hidalgo County and Cameron County and the Drainage District at this time from Hidalgo to see how we can partner together as the 3 entities to complete this project that's there. I'll give a quick briefing, and I'll let Commissioner Dan Sanchez advise the court more in detail, or TxDOT, whichever way the court wishes, is that we're looking at trying to have TxDOT go in and put the structures underneath the Channel 23. We're looking at acquiring right-of-way north of Business 83 in Hidalgo County, and then the acquisition of right-of-way for the expansion of the ditch south of Business 83 in Cameron County. In conjunction to that, as the maps you see up on the board up here and handed out to you, we've identified several watershed areas. One of them, as Commissioner Quintanilla alluded to, there was about 5,200 acres of water from Hidalgo that is moving southeast through the red channel, or the red line, which is Channel 23 or Ditch 23. And there's about 1,874 acres of water in Cameron County that's impacting that particular ditch. In trying to work with Cameron County and looking at the long reach of doing joint projects in the future, there's another drain ditch that does not belong to the drainage district, and to clarify, neither does Ditch 23. They belong to Irrigation District number 9, which is Hidalgo and Cameron County. But through interlocals that we have right now, Hidalgo County is able to maintain the Ditch 23, and we're trying to expand our interlocal with Delta Irrigation District, which owns a drain ditch that you can see in your exhibit is a green, which is about a 10-mile drain ditch that takes water basically just north of the expressway on the west side of Delta Irrigation Canal north and discharges it into the floodway system. That ditch is approximately about 10 miles in length. We're looking at trying to expand our interlocal to try to clear and grub that particular ditch. Hidalgo County Drainage number 1 several years back, at the request of Delta, went and cleared it once. What we're looking at right now is that we cleared the west bank, is to go in there and put it on our yearly maintenance program from now on forward, and not just clearing the west bank of the ditch, but clearing the east bank of the ditch, which is adjacent to the canal. In discussions with Delta Irrigation District, they're in support of expanding an interlocal with Hidalgo County Drainage District number 1, or whatever other entity wants to do it, to go in there and turn the maintenance of that facility over to Hidalgo County Drainage number 1 or Cameron County, whoever the entity might be, because their position is that that drainage system is not inside their district. That drain ditch that's there right now was excavated when they excavated and constructed the channel, so it was not a drain ditch to drain any of the lands within Delta Irrigation District. There's multiple districts in that area and also multiple counties that do flow into it. So I'm here to answer any specific questions, or we do have representatives from TxDOT here to give this court some additional information, or I turn it over to Commissioner Sanchez for any additional work.
I want to hear from TxDOT.
Yes.
Judge, Commissioners, my name is Homer Bazan. I'm with the TxDOT FAR District Office. This segment of Business 83 is the last remaining gap to expand to 4 lanes all the way from Harlingen all the way to Peñitas in Hidalgo County. And as everybody here knows, Business 83 is a major arterial for the valley for east-west movement.
It's an evacuation route as well.
Correct. And this project, we've been working on this project for several years now, and it's been complicated for the most part because of the drainage ditch. That this is this drainage ditch is the outfall for this portion of Business 83. We are committed, TxDOT is committed to doing this $10.5 million roadway project, which is from Mercedes to the Hidalgo-Cameron County line this July. We're planning to go to letting this July with this roadway project to go to 4 lanes. Now, what we plan to do also next year in March of 13 is build the six structures that are needed for this drain ditch from the expressway south to the floodway. There are 6 structures. 5 are roadway crossings, and then there's 1 structure needed at the IBWC levee. That's going to be a total of $1.5 million worth for the structures that we plan to let in March 2013. We've been in communication with Hidalgo County. We've been trying to get some a partnership going for this drainage ditch work, for the actual excavation of the ditch. And we felt, for a couple of reasons, that money-wise and also environmentally, we felt that that our environmental process is pretty complicated. We're hoping that you all could expedite it through your process and let it and build it on your own. Now, the structures in March 2013 that we plan to let, require this drainage ditch to be done at the same time, approximately. We can't build our structures without that channel excavation in place. So that's the main reason for wanting to get some kind of arrangement or some kind of partnership formalized for this action. Now, as has been explained, it's a complicated drainage ditch project because most of the water is coming from Hidalgo County, but most of the drainage ditch falls in Cameron County. So exactly how the funding will be done for that drainage ditch will be up to the entities, obviously.
Well, that's why you're here, right? And I think Commissioner Quintana knows, we've worked on regional projects, and it's something that we need to do regionally. And I guess my concern or the challenge we're going to have is where we're going to get the funding to do this, number one. Number two, how much is it going to cost? And we do have some bond money but we allocated $10 million of that bond money towards road projects. I don't know if we could use part of that for this, or unless there's another funding source that you have, Pete, in your wallet, or David does, to find out where we can come up with this. I imagine it's going to be a significant amount of money. I just don't know how much at this point. So, Pete?
And if I may, Judge, just to express the impact that it has on Hidalgo County, the gentleman correct to say that probably the majority of waters would come from Hidalgo County. All the northern region of my precinct actually is affected by this Ditch 23 project, which would alleviate the flooding problems we have in North Mercedes, North Weslaco, North Donna. The majority of my precinct actually being part of the Delta area. And so this project itself, the impact alone would be tremendous if it doesn't happen.
And I go back a few years ago when Dolly hit, and I think Hidalgo County got worse in terms of flooding than even Cameron did. I know there's a large part of your county that was underwater for a long, long time, like parts of ours.
That's great.
So I don't think there's any dispute in terms of wanting to do the project with Hidalgo County. Our challenge is going to be how are we going to fund it, where are we going to get it, and that's it. It's all about money.
I respect that tremendously.
And you know that. So let me ask, do you all have all the funding in place for your share already, or not yet?
Pretty much so.
Do you? How much are you lacking?
Your part. I'm just kidding,
Is
Judge.
that under option 1 or option 2?
I don't think so.
Is that
No,
option
actually, we've already identified that through what we're lacking is the land acquisition part, the right-of-way.
Right.
I mean, the expansion.
And that's what we're going to have to do as well.
Right, the expansion of this project. I know that I just want to thank Commissioner Dan Sanchez for making the time to meet with us. We've already had 3 meetings, and he shares the same concept you do, Judge, as well, as far as, building the partnerships and more regionalization of projects. And I know the rest of the county commissioners feel the same way. So I just want to thank you, take the time to thank you, Commissioner. But we've already identified basically the obstacle we have is the land acquisition, and we're estimating an approximate maybe $1.5 million.
And for how much in terms of miles right away? Because I thought I heard that we had like a lot more than you did.
Yes, actually the majority land acquisition is in Cameron County.
Right, and so your share was what? What do you estimate your right-of-way acquisition cost would be?
Well, actually ours is in Hidalgo.
They don't have any.
In Hidalgo County, it's half a mile. In Cameron
half
County.
a mile, exactly.
Right.
So I'm trying to
2.5
extrapolate
miles in
that. I'm
Cameron.
trying to extrapolate that number.
What's the exact acreage that we identified?
Basically, what we've got identified in there, Judge, I'm sorry, what we have identified, Judge Commissioners, we have an estimated cost of the land acquisition at about $450,000 in Cameron County. And then in Hidalgo County, we have an estimated cost for land acquisition at about $178,000.
So we're talking about $500,000?
Yes, sir.
For Cameron County. I thought it'd be a lot more than that, but if it's that amount of money, I think we're going to have to find the funding source for that.
And that's basically what we're looking at is the numbers that we've put in here, Judge Commissioners, is hard cost numbers if we would go out to do the project. we look at utilizing a lot of our own internal resources for the excavation, the construction. We do have to pay whatever consulting services we have, which is cash that we have to put out.
You know, and you hope that there's not one big power line going through
Yes,
the
sir.
project, because the last time we had that occur, cost us $632,000.
We understand, sir.
So there's still quite a few unknowns out there.
That is correct, sir.
You also have another issue because, you know, my precinct is not abutting to this project, but is further downstream. And one of the things that I would like addressed is to make sure that the added amounts of flow into the Arroyo Colorado will not impact the area further down. And what kind of capacity do you have, or will you have in the ditch that you're gonna be digging to use as a retention pond type thing in a major event? You know, I mean, none of that has been addressed yet.
Basically, what we have at this point, Commissioner, is the hydraulic requirement associated with the outfall for the area, and based on whatever year event, 9.5, 10.5, 25-year event, the actual structure inside or into the International Boundary and Water Commission is a structure that's going to be regulated by the IBWC.
Exactly.
Yes, sir.
That's why I'm saying,
Yes, sir.
you know, the structure is regulated, but when the flow comes through, you know, the flow is gonna come into that ditch. What kind of hydrology model are you gonna use, and for what number a year event will you have a retention pond in your ditch?
And I'll have to defer that to the engineers, Commissioner, but I do understand that 25-year events, what the engineers tell me. What I do understand is the
So
following.
there is already a study done?
Yes, sir. Apparently, from what I'm hearing from the engineer.
We're not gonna we're gonna make sure we don't flood you out. Basically, that's your concern, correct, Commissioner? That the waters be controlled as far as the rate and the flow, and what type of detention areas do we have? What mechanism are we using to make sure it doesn't affect you in that capacity? Is that correct?
Right, you know, and I can justify to folks, you know, how many, you know, we're gonna be putting 20% of the water in this ditch from Cameron County. 80% is coming in from Hidalgo.
Correct.
Okay, so when IBWC says this gate is shut because we're using our floodways, we know what happens already. We've been through one of those events, and we know how people respond when you have some of the municipalities that cannot discharge their water into the floodways, and then it just backs up into our communities.
And that's basically exactly it, Commissioner, that these structures of the IBWC are free-flowing as long as there's capacity inside the floodway.
Right.
Whenever there's no capacity inside the floodway, basically the gates are closed because they utilize the full force of the floodway system in there. And we have the same challenge in Hidalgo, just like every other community that's bordering against the floodway system, that we can utilize the floodway system as long as there's capacity. When there's not, you close the gates. So what your question, what I'm interpreting from you, is what is the detention capacity of this ditch going to be if the gates are closed? Will you be able to hold a 5-inch rain, a 4-inch rain, a 6-inch rain, or what additional flooding are you going to do
Right.
here?
That's my question.
Yes, sir, I understand. And I can't give you the specifics on it because we haven't completed the full hydraulics.
And my other question is, you have projects going through Willacy County.
Yes, sir.
On those projects, you know, Willacy County is utilizing some of those outflows, right?
Basically, there's two parts, Commissioner. On the master system that goes through Willacy County, the main channel, the main floodwater channel is owned and operated by Hidalgo County Drainage District Number 1. There are laterals that connect into those channels that are owned and operated by Willacy County Drainage District Number 1. Now, as long as there is capacity in that channel, Willacy County Drainage District Number 1 has the right to flow into it. As far as the maintenance cost of our main channel, there's a pro rata formula with Hidalgo County Drainage District Number 1 and Willacy County Drainage District Number 1 that for the first, let's say, 10 miles from the Laguna moving west, they pay for 29% of the maintenance of the channel. As they start moving further west, they start paying less maintenance to Hidalgo County. And what we do, we maintain a running log of equipment personnel that goes out there, and we bill them quarterly for the reimbursement. We've been doing that for 30-some-odd
Who
years.
owns the ditch?
The ditch is owned by Hidalgo County Drainage District Number 1.
So you own the right-of-way?
Yes, sir. We have an easement. There are some areas that we have fee simple. There's some areas that we just have an easement for our channel.
Why would you not want to do the same over here?
On this particular channel, What we're doing is an interlocal with it. What the district has, or the county has with irrigation district number 9, which is channel 23, that the district, through an interlocal that was signed about 2 years ago, turned over to Hidalgo County any and all rights that they might have, because they themselves don't know what rights they have, because a lot of these are blanket easements. As we go through this land acquisition process, that will clarify it, and at that point, that ditch will be turned over fee simple to the Hidalgo County, which in turn will turn it over to the drainage district. However, the Delta drain ditch running north and south, that particular channel is owned fee simple by Delta Irrigation District.
That's the other channel.
Yes, sir, that's the other channel going on. But this one going southeast is based on what we have from district number 9. They have a blanket easement through those areas. And basically what we would do is acquire, or Cameron County would acquire, any additional right-of-way associated with it. And again, if Cameron County wishes to buy the additional right-of-way and keep it in their name, then we would enter into a joint use agreement with Cameron County to utilize the ditch as it leaves Hidalgo County.
Of course, Hidalgo County would provide all the maintenance on the drainage ditch itself once it's complete. And as far as the Delta Irrigation District,
Yes, sir.
we are set to present at their next meeting, and my belief is that they are willing to turn over that ditch to us as well.
One of the, I'm sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt you.
That's fine.
When I first got called by Commissioner Quintanilla to discuss this project, the very first thing I saw, if you look at what they presented to us, is all the gray area with the red line into Cameron County. And the first meeting was, we need to drain this area, and which way the water flows is through that red line. Now, water doesn't respect county lines, precinct lines, anything. Water flows the way water's gonna flow. And the topical maps that they've provided for us to look at shows that regardless of whether we participate or not with the expansion of this ditch, the water's gonna come our way. If they do their project, because of the way water flows, it's gonna come our way. And there's not really much we can do about it, because that's which way water flows. So when I sat down with them, I said, okay, most of this ditch is in our area, and it's gonna benefit primarily Hidalgo County. I said, what can we do in a cooperative effort to benefit Cameron County? So then we looked at this brown area here, and everything that's in the brown is actually gonna benefit, because that's gonna be draining into that same ditch as well. Right now in Cameron County, we don't have the benefit of having our entire county covered by drainage districts. We have hodgepodge of drainage districts that'll cover little areas, but we don't have a complete drainage system. So in that area there, we don't even have a drainage district. All we have is the irrigation district that Rick Smith handles with La Feria. Mr. Smith does help in excavating and cleaning out some of those drainages, but they're not really in the business of drainage. They're in the business of irrigation. So one of the things I thought, when we sat down is, can we use this ditch and capture some of this water for the benefit of the irrigation district by putting in some sort of retention, or having a retention ability, and then he can benefit from that water for irrigation. So that thought process was already underway, Commissioner Garza. Then I also told him, I said, well, what other benefit are you going to give us? And Hidalgo County said, well, we'll actually enter into an interlocal to continue, or we'll maintain this entire ditch. That's a cost that Cameron County won't have. That's a cost that no drainage district in Cameron County will have, and we don't have a drainage district to begin with. So the benefit of keeping that ditch clean is going to benefit that entire brown area. Then we got to talking some more, and the reality is, if you look to the north end in the green area, all of that is Cameron County, which also doesn't have a drainage district. But what happens there is we get water from Hidalgo County that comes over into there, because the drain there is actually that ditch that's along the Delta Lake irrigation canal. and the water falls in there. And so the benefit that they also agreed, and we got with Delta Lake, and the benefit that they also conferred was that they would enter into an interlocal so that they would take on the maintenance of that ditch, which right now isn't maintained. How that's going to benefit Cameron County is in La Feria, where Rab Road is, there's an exit off the highway that every time it rains, it gets flooded. And the reason it gets flooded is that drainage, because there's no drainage district, is clogged up. And that drainage right now, I think it's Delta Lakes, but they had an interlocal with Parks and Wildlife, and it became overgrown. So they clean out. Rick Smith says they clean out half of it, but they don't clean the entire ditch. By Hidalgo County taking over that ditch as part of this agreement, it's going to solve that problem we have there at the highway. So I said, you know, if we look at all of the impact that it's going to have in Cameron County, adding the 2642 and the 1874, it kind of balances the effect that we're going to have with them. The other thing is, by working on this project with TxDOT and Hidalgo County, I think it helps us move more towards a regional plan, which, again, with Commissioner Garza, what he's indicated about his concern is very valid, because if all the water coming from the north isn't put in a plan to keep us from flooding, then, you know, we've got big problems. But if we can start working on a more regional approach to drainage, and I think there's even an agenda item with the Lower Rio Grande Development Council a little bit later in the, basically to talk about that type of thing. But I think the biggest impact here, Judge, is what you said about the emergency evacuation route, because if that highway gets flooded, we have one route to get out of Cameron County, and that's north. And if that gets flooded, then we're stuck.
Yeah. Well, again, thank you for all that. But
also, Judge, if I may, just to share with you, we have a estimated cost of about $200,000 a year in maintenance for this drainage areas that we would take on.
But, you know, I mean,
I think,
we're talking here, I think TxDOT has a little bit to bring to the table more so.
well, I'd just be happy if and no disrespect, because you're the point person for TxDOT today, but it seems like every time TxDOT works on a project, it gets screwed up.
I don't agree with that statement.
No,
for the record.
I mean that with the utmost of affection. Of course. Because what they end up, I've seen it where they go into a project, they take care of the highway, and then we've got some flooding issues, and we've seen that in certain subdivisions around the La Feria, Harlingen area, where they made some improvements, and we have to look beyond. I kind of empathize with Commissioner Gatsa. As you all do these hydrology studies, you need to see the impact all the way, not only when it reaches the Cameron County line, but all the way when it gets to the Gulf. I mean, you really have to look at that. And I may be a little bit exaggerated, but my concern is that you have all this water coming from Hidalgo County into a huge water reservoir ditch that's not going to be able to absorb all that water. And I think you have to do the study that's going to look at that. And that's some of the mistakes I think that have been made by other agencies in the past. They just get the water off this ledge, but they don't look to see where it goes from here on out. They just do the minimum. So I'd like to see that. I don't think that anybody on the commission really has a dispute in trying to do this if we can address the issues in terms of what's going to do to parts of Cameron County. Our benefit is that you're benefiting. And as long as and I've long said before, if it helps you, it helps us, and vice versa. But we have to do our due diligence as well. The hydrology studies that you all want to do, how far down the road were you going to go to do that?
Actually, that was what I was going to address at this point, Judge. The hydrology studies that should be complete within the next few months, but more than anything, Commissioner Garza, with all respect to your precinct, in our discussions as well, that whatever we design, whatever study, whatever facts we come up with, being that we would have a commitment we already have the commitment from Hidalgo County and TxDOT ourselves, and if we can get Cameron County to commit also, we would be more responsible for building any lineal detention necessary or other detention and retention areas to make sure that we don't flood you down if water starts bottlenecking as well.
Well, and one of the reasons.
What does TxDOT bring to the table?
What
you
is,
answer that?
Go ahead and ask me.
Yeah, what is TxDOT bringing to the table for this project?
4 lanes.
As far as the
Four
project,
lanes.
Well, obviously the roadway, the 10.5 million for the roadway.
Yeah, but you're gonna do that anyway.
Well, yes, but we need this drainage improvement with it. It's part of the project. The drainage is part of it. The $1.5 million that I mentioned earlier, Judge, for the 6 structures that we need, including the one at the IBWC levee, we're committed to doing that. We have a March 2013 scheduled letting for that. So the channel is the last segment that we need, and the structures and the channel need to work
together.
Together. So
Right.
obviously, it's a separate project, but they are tied. We can't do our structures without the channel improvements in place.
Right.
So we don't need any environmental work done, Homer?
On the structures, we do, Commissioner. On the channel, we're relying on the counties, I guess, on the partnership. Like I mentioned earlier, we felt that you all could expedite that environmental clearance a lot faster than we could. Our environmental requirements are such that it would, we're concerned it might drag on way too long.
Well, I like to see the hydrology studies, and, I think it's a great project. I think that in some parts of all of our precincts, we've waited years to get projects done. I know that we had to wait in line for funding to get one project in Green Valley done, which is ongoing right now, almost completed. But I'd like to see what percentage of the water going into that ditch is yours, what percentage of the water going into that ditch is ours, and maybe have an option 3, where if 80% of the water that go into that ditch is yours, maybe you ought to consider 80% of the cost.
Okay.
Something a little more equitable that I would feel more comfortable seeing that. I remember the days when JD was here where, the damage assessment model was not good enough for him because ours was bigger than his, but the population model was good enough for him because they had more population than we did. So I think we need to go at these things in a very equitable way in which we can all live with our decisions more easily.
And I had asked Hugo to put together a list of a cost benefit to Cameron County. And do you have that?
Commissioner, don't condemn us for previous administrations, if you would.
Hey,
But we're here to work with you,
JD and I
Commissioner.
are good friends, man, and we still need him, okay?
Yeah, I know,
We,
I know. Yeah, but it is 80-20 on the actual percentages of flows
Well,
that we're looking at.
Maybe that would be something that would be more budgetable for us. I mean, I know that there is one area that we have not discussed as a court that recently, but we had I brought it to Pete's attention was the, remember adding from the Public Works Fund, going out and looking to see if we could fund more money into the right-of-way issues. This would fall in that category. I think that if we need to do that and consider that and allocate a piece of Public Works income to be able to borrow money to do projects such as this and others, we need to look at that component soon so that could be a funding option.
There's different options we can look at, Commissioner. If you want to consider 80-20, you all purchase all the land acquisition in the county, and we'll take it from there. Or there's different options we can look at. I know Commissioner Sanchez is already smiling because he's a little bit more in tune with the project, right, Commissioner?
I think today, look, today's discussion is simply to air out a lot of these potential challenges that we have. We cannot make the decision today in terms of this agenda item, but I think it's something that we open up dialogue court to court and along with TxDOT and work towards doing that. In the interim, we need to find a funding mechanism to do this. All the maintenance, all the M&O that y'all are going to do, that's all fine, but that does not help us today in terms of finding the money that we need. And Pete, you said something about in-kind?
Yeah, Judge, and I haven't been at any of this meeting, so I really would need a more detailed presentation. But just in looking at the cost estimates, one line item that I saw, because historically, Cameron County has used their own staff to acquire right-of-way. So if we can combine in-kind services with cash, we might be able to stretch our dollar because, we acquire right away all the time for different projects, so that's one way, you know, to look at it.
Well,
We're always acquiring right away for the RMA, right?
For the county, we haven't acquired any for the RMA. Well, we are for West Rail.
Come on, Pete.
well, but they got the money. Let's
No,
do this.
we're
Let's go ahead.
signing for them to get the money.
Let's go ahead and move along and acknowledge, and then what would you like? Would you like Pete to, or I guess assign Pete to begin talking?
Without going on commissioner, but on the technical level, we'd like to go ahead and sit down with Pete to go over the present, or not the president, but the cost analysis that we have in there, for him to give this court his opinion on it, and coordinate with commissioners to try to get a consensus, and look at the hydraulics that the commissioners asked.
Look at the funding options.
And the funding options, you know, and then come back with a package whenever y'all are ready.
What are the timelines that y'all are up against for us to get, you know, an answer to you?
Actually, Judge, Commissioners, it is very time sensitive for Hidalgo County. Hopefully, we can get an answer from you all within 30 days, if possible.
Well, you understand.
Whatever meetings we can have.
Well, you know that the primary's already moved again, Commissioner,
I know.
to May 29th, so it gave you a little bit of breathing time now. But I understand. We will do whatever we can.
And whatever we need to do on our part, please, we're here to work together with you all. We do, you know, Judge, we do believe in regionalization, and we're more than willing to come and do whatever we can to assist Cameron County with any given issue.
All right, let me hear a motion to acknowledge.
Let me just make one comment. First of all, thank you for coming. It's good to see you.
Likewise.
And I look forward, you know, to future endeavors regionally. And a lot of times we talk about it, but it's good to see we're actually doing something about it.
All right.
Again, welcome to all of y'all.
Thank you so much.
I'll make the motion to acknowledge the report.
Second.
Moved by Commissioner Hernandez, second by Commissioner Benavides.
I think one more comment.
Discussion.
One more comment, and this is directly to Homer. This will help the expressway problems that we've seen in the past, right?
This will definitely be a big part of the puzzle, correct,
Okay.
for drainage.
For
yes.
drainage.
Yes,
Yeah.
yes.
Because I know that we visited and you mentioned to me, and I remembered, you know, when the expressway was under construction in certain areas, we had a disconnect between us and the western part of the area because of flooding.
Right. At that time, the expressway main lanes were down at the bottom, and with the flooding that occurred with Dolly, you know, it flooded the frontage roads, and therefore basically the expressway was severed at that point. So now with the main lanes built, I mean, that definitely helps. The frontage roads will likely be affected, obviously, you know, if.
Yeah, but this drainage will hopefully help
Correct.
alleviate some of that also.
And right now, underneath the expressway, we have two box culverts underneath. We're looking at adding a third one if we're able to make this improvement to the drainage ditch for these 3 miles. We're looking at adding a third box underneath the expressway to help out, you know, the upstream, you know, watershed.
Any further discussion?
Just, Commissioner, thank you for coming down here, and thank you for partnering with us, and we're going to do everything we can to make this happen.
I do believe that, gentlemen, ma'am, and I really want to thank you for your consideration. And Judge, in the future, if you'd like to establish some type of interlocal agreement between counties for use of equipment or assistance rather than just wait for an emergency situation, I think that would be great. What we're looking at is more of a proactive approach.
Thank you,
because what
appreciate
affects Hidalgo County obviously affects Cameron County and vice versa. And when we're dealing with emergency situations, I know that we get together hand in hand and address the issues together because it affects all our constituents. And may God bless each and every one of you.
Thank you, Commissioner.
Thank
Appreciate
you.
it.
Thank you for your time.
All in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, item carries. Thank you all very much.
Thank you very much, Judge, Commissioners.
Sure.
Checkbook, Pete, checkbook.
Item D, presentation by Carlos Aguilar with the U.S.-Mexico Border Counties Coalition. Tocayo, welcome.
Judge, Commissioner Scott.
You got 30 seconds. Everybody else used up all your time. I'm just kidding.
Move to approve, no.
Judge, Commissioners, Thank you. I'll make this brief. Being a former commissioner myself, I can understand lengthy meetings, and actually, I applaud your efforts on regional approach and economies of scale. I've had the pleasure as a commissioner working with MGT in the past, but we're here today to talk very briefly about the U.S.-Mexico Border Counties Coalition. I did have the opportunity to talk to some of you, and thank you for that time. And the U.S.-Mexico Border Counties Coalition started in 1998. I was the first chairman of the coalition back in '98. The coalition was established along the U.S.-Mexico border to address the challenges of underfunding or federal mandates that had no funding in this region, from Cameron County to San Diego County. Cameron County was a founding member of the coalition. We send you the newsletters, we send you the updates. We have two annual, two meetings, one in Washington, one in September, and the location moves. I have David Austin, which has been the executive director for the coalition for quite a number of years. You know, and he'll tell you more about the different things that we're working on. But it's kind of one of those things that your brother counties along the U.S.-Mexico border are looking for Cameron County to be a little bit more proactive, be part of the team, be part of the executive calls, and participate perhaps in some of our visits in Washington. The judge was very kind in offering his services to assist us in some of those meetings. So thank you, Judge. And I'll have David Austin talk to you a little bit about what we're doing right now.
Thank you, Carlos. Judge, commissioners, and especially Commissioner Sanchez, we haven't had the pleasure of meeting yet. I'm sorry we haven't been able to make contact, but look forward to visiting with you separately in the near future. As Carlos mentioned, we've been engaged since 1998 in advancing issues, principally funding issues that benefit border counties from San Diego to Cameron County. Our notable achievements are in the area of the State Criminal Alien Assistance Program, helping maintain that program, which is typically under fire by the administration, but Congress, with our efforts, usually has always refunded it. Y'all have benefited from that program quite significantly in all years of the program, and certainly in past years. Over $500,000 in '09. It's dropped in 10 to about $260,000, and that reflects budget cuts at federal level. But it would have been more severe had we not intervened on that program. Same thing with the Southwest Border Prosecution Initiative, which funds the DA's office for prosecuting declined federal drug cases. We also were responsible for several reports that have provided credible information to Congress so that they could craft legislation. The MGT report that Carlos referenced was one that we commissioned, looking at the cost of emergency care that was provided to undocumented immigrants in hospital settings. That resulted in legislation that created a $1 billion program to fund those costs. Texas received about $72 million of those dollars annually and has fully exhausted those funds at this point. We're working to get that program reauthorized and refunded. More currently, we're working on some initiatives that the members of the coalition have asked us to look at, one of which would create a program that would reimburse counties for the increased maintenance cost on their county roads that's resulting from the increased presence of federal agencies on those roads, specifically and most importantly, Border Patrol. Many counties across the whole U.S.-Mexico border are seeing big impact on their maintenance cost because of that. Right. And we got an amendment inserted into the transportation bill that's working its way through the Senate and the Congress in the House right now just last week. And we were very appreciative of the information that Pete Sepulveda provided to us with respect to the county roads here in Cameron County. Getting that kind of data is very important to supporting that kind of legislation. The couple of other initiatives that we're currently working on with Congressman Cuellar, we're going to be working on his legislation that would allow for private equity investment in border infrastructure projects, which many counties, not just here in Texas, but along the whole border, are very interested in. And they've asked us to help provide, help drum up support for that initiative. And then the final one is one that would expand the purchasing options for counties and make all the GSA schedules available to counties. So those are some of the current things we're working on, some of the benefits that derive from membership in this coalition. Of course, the other membership benefit that you derive is certainly the opportunity to dialogue with your colleagues from as far away as San Diego on a regular basis. And that's where the power of this coalition comes in, is through that unity with all 24 counties and the coalition we create in Congress. So with that, I'll offer.
Any questions?
Judge, I know you talk about us having been part of your coalition in the past, and in speaking with you yesterday, I understand that you all have submitted an invoice for this past year. Is this something that we have budgeted?
No, I don't think so.
Mrs. Galarza?
Yes, it would be budgeted.
Okay.
How long have we been part of this?
Well, you know, all the counties have membership ability. Now, in the past, you know, you were having some budgetary constraints, so we kind of overlooked the bill. But some of your member brother counties up the river
Have said we need to pay our share?
Basically, yes. But in the past, you know, we had come and talked to the judge, and you know, at the time you were facing some budgetary issues, and we can understand that. But
Commissioner, specifically, y'all, you know, as Carlos mentioned, y'all were an original founding member in 1998, and have participated in most of the years since. There's been a couple of recent years where we haven't seen y'all at the table. And yes, while the payment is important, it's $11,314 annually. More importantly is the leadership that y'all provide as one of the key counties in the coalition. Y'all are what I consider one of the anchor counties, the larger urban counties, and particularly the anchors on the two ends of the county. It's really important to have that kind of unity.
Do you have a budget of the money that y'all collect and the expenditures?
Yes, sir, just on thumbnail. The dues, if we get 100% collection on our dues from the 24 county members, that generates about $140,000 a year. My firm manages the coalition under contract, and I'm paid $75,000 a year for our services. Those services include management along the border, and then I have a partner in Washington, D.C., and we manage the, you know, we do walk the halls of Congress on behalf of the coalition. We also host 2 annual meetings, as Carlos mentioned, one in Washington, D.C. It's coming up next month, March 6th and 7th, as part of the NACO conference. And then we host an annual meeting on the border, and it rotates from state to state. Next one will be in Arizona sometime in the fall. The balance of the funds are used to underwrite the cost of those conferences and you know, other miscellaneous expenses that we incur. We have a very low overhead, so.
I think the reason that to answer partly to Commissioner Benavides, is that we were looking at some of these coalitions, like the Texas Border Coalition that we also participate with and pay dues to. I think at the time we decided, okay, which one is closer to us? And I think at the time we decided the Texas Border Coalition was that we're active in that. But coupled with just the $11,300, I think it is a nominal amount of money to pay for something like this, but Cameron County is probably one of the lead counties along the border. As we talked about yesterday, also part of the decision was it's not just the $11,300 fee that you pay. In order to be active, you got to participate in meetings, go to the conferences, so you have to add some more money to that. So, you know, and as we've been so diligent in scrutinizing travel, that's another area that we're going to have to scrutinize: who goes, when we go, et cetera. But that's why the decision
county
was
vehicle
made.
to Washington.
I don't know if my Bronco would make it to Washington, but I think it was important at the time when we're looking for budget cuts. I mean, not that our budget has gotten any easier, because it does not. I think it's a small investment, you know, to have and just see how it works out. I think we bring a lot to the table, and as I mentioned to you yesterday, you know, a lot of members of this court have good contacts in D.C. and just pick up the phone and call these guys, and hopefully, you know, they'll act for you. But we've never hired lobbyists since I've been here, but it's in this case it's important to join our fellow counties up and board. I think some of the counties talked to you that they really wanted us, you know, to be involved. And I think you mentioned some of the counties, and I won't mention who they are, but they wanted to make sure that we kind of came back because they needed us to help them along the Texas-Mexico border.
When did we stop participating?
The last 2 years, we've not had the benefit of y'all's membership or your direct involvement.
So if that's the case, and I don't know if it is budgeted, Martha?
Probably isn't.
Yeah, I didn't think it was. I didn't think it was.
So we just took it as it came then?
No,
We took the bill as it came in previous to 2 years ago?
No, 2 years ago.
Yeah, it was budgeted. No, there was, we deliberately not funded it.
There was an action item where it was discussed and
it just wasn't budgeted. I mean, when it was presented, that was one of those areas that we started, you know, kind of cutting 10,000 here, 5,000 there, et cetera, to balance
But in
the
the
budget.
past, you were participating.
Correct.
right.
Yes.
Well, and
Actively participating.
the only concern though is if we start adding 11,000,
Right.
15,000, 20,000 here and there, we get to the end of the year and all of a sudden we need another $500,000 in budget that we hadn't anticipated at the beginning of the year. And those are just the concerns. I mean,
To tell you how tough it was, the last meeting, there was some discussion regarding a $32 difference in a couple of printers. And so that's how we're scrutinizing. I mean, we're scrutinizing every single dollar, so.
we need to treat this like our budget at home, not
That's right.
just open the
Exactly right.
checkbook and have a heyday.
So we'll go ahead and scrutinize $32, but then really kind of, and then but to give $11,000 away. I mean, it's kind of.
Well, you know, I can understand the scrutiny and the frugalness of looking at cost savings, but in the long run, this is something that brings a benefit to this county and to the membership counties along the U.S.-Mexico border. Every year, we have to fight for that SCAP funding. And every year, you know, your county and the rest of the counties along the U.S.-Mexico border, and not only along the U.S.-Mexico border, because, you know, they've opened it up for all, you know, New York and a lot of counties take advantage of that. But every year, it's, you know, almost without exception, the dollars have been lowered, or there's some years where it's been zeroed out, the SCAP funding, and we are at the forefront advocating for that. And also on the Southwest Border Prosecution Initiative, you know, we're at the forefront of that. You know, there's some really great opportunities right now, and I applaud Mr. Sepulveda because he's been providing us data on the county roads that you have along the U.S.-Mexico border. So it's one of those things that, you know, you can't see maybe initially the direct benefit, you know, but in the long run, you do receive a tremendous benefit. And
Well, let's do this. We're going to go ahead and acknowledge the presentation. Next meeting, we'll have it placed on the agenda for action, and then at that time, find a funding source for it, and we'll just take it from there. Is that all right?
Sure. I mean, if we haven't budgeted for it for the year, though, I mean.
Well, she's gonna have to find the funding source for it, like we did, you know, like potentially gonna do for the slot.
Okay.
Okay, all right. Thank you very much. Do I hear a motion to,
So
moved by Commissioner Benavides, second by Commissioner Hernandez, to acknowledge the report, then have it placed on the agenda for action at the next meeting, okay? All in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed?
Aye.
Item carries. Thank you all
Judge,
very much
Commissioners.
Thank you.
for being here. Item E, presentation of the Lower Rio Grande Development Council grant obtained from the Economic Development Administration. My old tennis buddy. We won't say how far that goes, all right?
Good afternoon, Judge, Commissioners. Mario Garcia with the Lower Rio Grande Valley Development Council. First of all, we're doing a presentation on the Regional Economic Adjustment Plan. It's just a whole slew of drainage projects. With me today is, and we're very fortunate that we have a very good partner in this project, SMB Infrastructures, and representing SMB Infrastructures is Charlotte Teagues, who is the senior project manager, and we work and communicate every day, about 10, 15 times a day, it seems. So I've gotten to know Charlotte. She's got quite expertise on this matter, and we also have Alma Walsner, who is a government liaison. And so, but before we open it up for Charlotte, I just wanted to let you know, Judge, that wanted to recognize the fact that Commissioner Benavides is on our COG board, and want to commend her for her public service, and we really appreciate that coming from the COG. We also like to recognize Commissioner Garza. He is a vice chair on our steering committee for this particular project. And of course, Commissioner Hernandez, I've known for quite some time, and we communicate, and we've communicated on this particular project, so I'd like to recognize that. And then I think Commissioner Sanchez and I haven't met, but we have a mutual friend, Gloria Casas, that speaks very highly of you, and I know she's communicated with you on this project. So I'd like to commend all of you for your public service, and with that in mind, I'm going to let Charlotte take over. So thank you for your time.
Good afternoon, Judge, Commissioners. I want to thank you for this opportunity to provide you a short brief on where we are at with this project. We're getting close to the completion and wanted to visit with each Commissioner's Court of the project study area and kind of go over them where we're at and what's coming up. Basically, a few quick reminders. The project was funded by a grant from the U.S. Department of Economic Development Administration, and it was in response to the need that was felt by the public and elected officials of our area, of the Lower Rio Grande Valley, regarding regional planning, some of the stuff that you've talked about today, specifically how to ensure quick economic recovery following flooding from major storm events such as Hurricane Dolly and Alex. Now, the overall title of this project is a little lengthy, so we have shortened it to be named the LRGV Regional EAP. The project is being managed by the COG under Ken Jones and Terry Salinas, as well as Mario Garcia. And the technical team includes 8 professional services firms. One of those firms is here with me today, LNG Engineers, Damian Tejerina and Anthony Garza. LNG specifically has done a lot of the upfront work, data collection, and putting together the project report for the Cameron County area. So they played a large part in the development of this project. Additionally, the project is being facilitated by 2 committees. First, the technical committee with 18 members, chaired by Sonia Lambert of Cameron County, Irrigation District Number 2, with Raul Cecile of Hidalgo County as the vice chair. And the second committee, the steering committee, has 29 members, led by Godfrey Garza of Hidalgo County and Commissioner David Garza of Cameron County Precinct 3. The steering committee basically guides the overall development of the project, while the technical committee kind of focuses on the technical aspects. Both committees, however, are actually a part of the evaluation process of the biggest part of the project, which is the capital improvement program. So they're involved in the evaluation and the ranking of the projects. To date, we've had one steering committee meeting, one technical committee meeting, and 4 joint meetings. And we're planning in the near future to have 2 more joint meetings, one in March and one, the last one maybe in April and May. But I'll talk about the schedule a little bit more after this. Essentially, the purpose of the project is through collaboration to develop a regional master plan of drainage capital improvement projects, and ultimately to continue this collaboration utilizing the CAP as well as the comprehensive GIS inventory and database that has been developed. It is anticipated that since all these counties worked hard together to create this regional CIP, that our area will be able to compete globally for future funding when needed. There were various tasks and objectives in our development. The biggest one was upfront data collection. The team collected data from the project study area. They visited over 110 entities in all 4 counties. What I mean, they actually went and visited each office, sat down with members of the engineering staff, sat down with the commissioners, sat down with city managers, and actually interviewed them and collected the data. We collected electronic data of aerials, digital images, historic topography, as well as geographic information system data, the electronic data that helps build a GIS system. Streets, roads, utilities, land use, floodplain, soils. We also looked at the major elements of the drainage systems within each entity, gathered existing studies and reports, as well as property ownership information. To date, the team has collected over 1.2 terabytes of electronic data. And we've actually finished our GIS data collection and our inventory database and turned it over to the COG, and we're planning to give a little short presentation at our next steering committee meeting in March on that actual database. The team has also evaluated the data for existing and future conditions. Remember, we want to know, well, what's it look like today? What's it going to look like in the future? And the way that we're doing that is through land use characterization studies. For each entity, cities, counties, and whatnot, we've actually developed a current land use map as well as a future land use map. And here on my slide, it just happened for illustrative purposes to show you what we've done for Cameron County. Also from the collected data, the team was tasked to develop what we call the big picture plan. Kind of some of the stuff you were talking about that project earlier, how the water flows, where it's going to, how it's draining. So what the team has done with all the data that we've collected, studies, old studies, current studies, new studies, whatever, is actually mapped the storm watersheds, the sub-watersheds and whatnot, identifying the major flow nodes and seeing how the water flows and where the major outfalls are. One of the major pieces of information when we went to visit the entities, the team asked, well, what happened like during Hurricane Dolly? What happened? Where were your major flooding problems? And what were the associated impacts? So we basically documented all that effort. It's in written text, as well as we've mapped those problem areas. On your screen is some of the problem areas that we've documented as far as their locations and whatnot. And they're all related in the GIS database with written text to identify what those problems are and when they occurred. The team also identified and mapped the major areas of economic generators for the counties and the cities, including employment centers as well as sales tax and revenues. Because basically what we're trying to do is evaluate each project that we come up with to see how the cost of the project relates to the ultimate benefit of the benefits that the project will produce. We asked each entity for the projects that they had in mind, what were some of the projects that were on their books as far as what they felt would improve conditions critical to the region's economic base. In Cameron County, we've identified over 220 projects. Now, we're not evaluating all 220 of those projects. What we're doing is, based on the guidance of the steering committee and technical committee, is we are categorizing the projects as small, medium, and large. So we took the 220 projects, categorized them by small, medium, large. Small is anywhere from zero, the cost of the project will be from 0 to 2.5 million. Medium, anything between 2.5 million and 25 million. And then large projects, anything greater than 25 million. For two reasons. One, we wanted similar, I can't say similar, but cost-wise projects to compete against each other instead of a smaller project competing against a larger project. The other thing is we asked each entity to, okay, here's your projects that you've identified. Now what's your top 3 small, what's your top 3 medium, and what's your top 3 large? And those are the actual ones that we are going to be prioritizing. Again, all the identified projects will be in the report and will be based, but when it comes to the actual ranking and prioritization, we'll be looking at this 3 small, 3 medium, and 3 large. For example, in Cameron County, your large project currently is the North Floodway bypass or the Hardin Ranch drainage extension. That's currently, in current dollars, about a $65 to $70 million project. The other thing about the cost estimates, we're also going to look at the future cost. You know, if this project doesn't get built today or within 5 years, what's it going to cost in the future? So we're incorporating all this information into those projects. Now, we've mapped all the projects. This right here is just a screenshot of what we've mapped for Cameron County as far as your 220 projects. Okay, now the next biggest step in what we're currently doing is in the process of ranking the projects to develop a preliminary prioritization. We want to do that and present it to the steering and technical committee sometime in March. The ranking and prioritization is actually being developed by a scoring form that was developed by the steering and technical committees of the project. Specifically, we're evaluating and scoring each of these projects regarding their area, number one, their area that they serve or the relief to the overall region system. Second, its cost versus its ultimate benefit. And third, its public support and commitment to long-term maintenance. So I do have a copy of the scoring forms if y'all are interested, and I can leave one for you. Each of those goals that I just read to you have multiple questions underneath them to help the technical reviewer guiding him into determining how to score or give points to a certain part of the project. Finally, the overall plan will also include 3 things. We're also going to look at funding. We're going to look at funding sources, try to identify them for each project if available. We're also going to develop a schedule for the CIP based on the funding availability and the project ranking. And then the third thing is to provide some implementation recommendations, meaning, okay, so we've got this grandiose study, which some people don't like to hear that word study, but you've got this great document of great projects, as well as the GIS database. Is it going to just sit on the shelf, or is it going to be maintained? You know, because we can't build everything at once. So we're going to be providing recommendations for the committee to consider regarding how you're going to implement and maintain this plan, as well as administer it. We're also looking and providing some research regarding what government entity might house it, if you will. Would it be like a drainage district interlocal agreements, irrigation district interlocal agreements, regional water authority, the COG, or even a brand new entity? So,
do you have any dollars associated with implementation of this plan? If everybody does what they're supposed to do you have any dollars associated with it? Like
as far as the project costs that we have identified so far?
Is it 100 million, 20 million?
For current dollar value, we're sitting at close to $1 billion.
Oh, yeah,
yes.
With a B, right?
Yes.
So you have this, and I kind of jumped in because you talked about, okay, you've got this big study now. Now what? Okay, we know we got a problem, except no one got $1 billion, maybe except for Commissioner Sanchez, but you know, has $1 billion. And that was question number one. And number two is, how does this tie into the presentation that came before you regarding that drainage plan?
in fact, I believe that project might even be one of both the
It's one of the
identified
projects.
projects.
It's one of the projects that's already in here. And even after doing that project, we're still shy $1 billion with a B, Commissioner, with a B.
Do you have money for that project? We need about $1.5 million.
Well, but I think that we need to, you're kind of going way above.
Well, no, I know, but I'm saying, you know what, we do all these studies, and they're great, but they're telling us stuff that we probably, most of us already know. Okay, now, once we do that, then what is it that we're going to do or you're going to do to help us?
Implementation.
Yeah, come up with the money to do it. That's where I'm going.
That's exactly what our ultimate
That's the
report is going to
goal is.
reflect. Because we don't want it, the best thing that's happening right now is, and you mentioned the word region, doing regional, is that this is a regional effort. So you've got the 3-county area plus a portion of STAR. So we lay out this plan, we identify the CIP. Again, the identified projects will be ranked. There's a lot of, parameters associated with that ranking. But at the same time, we're going to be identifying funding sources. I heard you also say today that how are we going to fund this Ditch 23? So we're looking at that also. We're not just saying, well, here's your project and, there's nothing, we don't know where you're going to get your money, but we're going to give you, we're going to document the ideas and document that.
I think that I need to preface something, and not to take away from anything that Cheryl has said, but this project, and I don't mean like an individual project, but this project came about after Hurricane Dolly. We had numerous meetings with many federal officials and local officials. One of the officials that strongly encouraged us to apply for the EDA money was Senator Hutchison, and she says, look, everybody's fighting for the same dollar. We're trying to convince all our cohorts up in DC that the project I'm asking for money for is the most important one. They asked, well, what's the plan for the valley? And there was no plan anywhere in place except for Sonia Lambert's plan, Godfrey Garcia's plan, each piecemeal of all. So they says, what you need to do is come to us, have a request for some economic development dollars for resilient communities or whatever all that word is. And then not blighted. No, not blighted, okay. Resilient, I mean, the whole idea was, if you had a catastrophic event, what is the true cost of the losses incurred in being able to bring those communities back to resiliency again? So that being worked through, and then Ken took the lead because it was a regional project. Funds were able to be acquired, as you well know, Commissioner Benavides, for the development of a study. This is the study that was developed, and hopefully now, when we prioritize, and when Cheryl talks about the evaluation instruments and the priorities and all of that, there has been hours and hours of discussions in regards to putting value to how you prioritize and evaluate each little project. Because I know I've sat with you, and we've gone back and forth on many little issues, because we don't want to leave anyone out. And the process of the 3 different tiers of cost, in the studies, the prioritization of the studies, when they come to me or to you or any of you as a commissioner and say, which are the 3 biggest problem areas you have, which are the 3 medium problem areas you have, and which are your 3 least expensive problem areas to fix, give us those projects. And that's where they're at now. So now, this particular project that we're looking at, whether it be bond monies, whether it be whatever funds we can find to cooperate and do the project with, that's one that you just put a cross on, and it's done, and it helps this whole area. But that was the intent of this. When there are federal dollars, FEMA dollars that sometimes go unclaimed and unused in certain areas, now we have a document that we can go and say, look.
And who implements the plan? Does the COG do, or?
Well, that's what I was trying to explain, and maybe I didn't explain it clearly enough. We're actually going to provide some recommendations as per the direction of the committees. Who's going to house the plan and who's going to maintain it, who's going to facilitate it and implement it. Is it going to be the COG? Is it going to be the Regional Water Authority? Is it going to be interlocal between all the counties? Is it going to be a drainage district? So, or is it going to be a brand-new entity? So we have Bickerstaff, Heath, Delgado, and Acosta have been researching that. They've actually developed a matrix of the pros and cons of each one of those. I got the draft plan a couple of months back. So that's another thing we're going to be presenting to the committees to move forward on that direction. So yes, there will be something in there to determine who's going to house it.
And the policy and steering committee will come up with a decision to recommend.
For recommendation, yes.
We're not there yet.
There's no doubt that being shovel-ready is half to three-quarters of the battle sometimes. Just recently, the city got money from that stimulus package, of $50-something million, because they had all these projects set to go, and they got immediate funding, and you saw the town was all torn up with all the new sewer line. But because they were prepared, they were ready, the documents were done, everything was in place, and the money came in pretty quickly.
I have a question for you. I'm sorry, I didn't mean to.
I'll finish, go ahead.
Okay. Does this study take into consideration something that Commissioner Garza brought up earlier on the other outfalls when IBWC shuts down the waterway? Yes. And does it also take into consideration the impact IBWC and what federal funds we may look to because everyone's water ends up on our property?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes, it does. And see, your large project that's coming out of Cameron County, the bypass, you know, that's a bypass where you don't have to rely on the floodway. You're going to have your own ditch per se, kind of like what Hidalgo County's doing with the project called Raymondville Drain, the one that's crossing over up north of
to Willacy.
And then across to Willacy, outfall to the Laguna. Right. So.
Okay.
Just real quick, I put a little status schedule in all of those major elements. We're, like I said, we're in the process of ranking and giving a preliminary prioritization, but we're also taking the step at some suggestions by Commissioner Garza and others to go back and revisit with the entity, show them where we're at with their 3 projects for small, medium, and large, what we're looking at as far as scoring, you know what I'm saying, see, to kind of get their buy-in. The other thing that we're doing, oh, and also, just real quick, what we're planning to do is try to be complete by May. Going to have another steering committee, technical committee in March, then one in April. Next week, we're going to start having some public workshops, and in fact, the Cameron County public workshops are on my next slide. I have 2 next week in Precinct 1 and Precinct 2, and then the following Precinct 3 and Precinct 4. And what we're planning to do at those workshops is, again, present them back their list of projects. Not necessarily, we're not going to present the ranking because we need to go before the steering committee before we do that. And basically get their buy-in and, oh yeah, we like that project, or you forgot this one or whatnot. Just get their buy-in. And again, take any additional information they have regarding flooding. Then ultimately, we're going to, after we meet with the steering committee in March, get some direction from them, hopefully go to final public meeting, 1 in each county, okay? And then submit our draft plan sometime May, late May, but 1st of June, so that's where we're at.
In Hidalgo County, you have a unique situation where you have one drainage district that takes care of all of Hidalgo County. In our county, there's areas like Commissioner Garza said that do not, that are left out. How will you be giving any type of recommendations on how to address that particular issue?
We definitely are. That came in loud and clear as an issue, especially in Cameron County, and so we are going to provide recommendations for what they call the no man's land.
Okay. I had one question. The public workshops, my particular one for precinct 2 is being held at the airport. Was there a reason for that? That's way out of our precinct. Was there a...
I apologize, Commissioner.
No, it's all right. Oh, excuse me, it's all right.
The other way around.
Yeah, my concern was, we have it like at the public library, which is in precinct 2. This one's way in precinct 1, and I don't want to, I'll be there. I just want to inconvenience people from our precinct that would want to show up.
I apologize for that misunderstanding. We did try and get them in the precincts, and for the final
think they're
public meeting, we will
1 and 2.
we will definitely make sure that happens, so.
I think that 1 and 2 are switched.
Did I miss?
No, actually, we're sitting in precinct 1 right here.
We're sitting in 1?
This is one
Yes,
also.
sir.
We'll just fix it.
That's right, yeah, because
Has it already been publicized?
Yes, it has. Well, actually, no.
Why don't you move it to the
No,
library?
it has not. We have time.
yeah, if you can, it'd be good if you could move it to the public library or here. No, well, this precinct 1 also, I'm sorry. The public library would be better.
Okay, we'll do it.
Public library,
It's on Central Boulevard.
Central Boulevard.
Central Boulevard.
Okay. Anything else from you guys?
Well,
Mario?
the other, the one comment, Judge, Commissioners, that I was gonna say, just, and kind of touching on what you were asking, Judge, is I sit on a committee, on a Hidalgo County Drainage Committee, that, and Hidalgo, this is the biggest issue that there is in Hidalgo County is drainage. So they've been really proactive, and they've put together an advisory committee, and I've been fortunate to serve as technical support on it. But Congressman Hinojosa visited us recently, and one of the things that he discussed was this about funding, and being that it's regional, that we're doing the right thing, okay? And just so that you'll know, also, we had a member of the COG from Houston who saw this project and said, you know, you guys are way ahead of the curve on this, because the mere fact, I mean, Houston doesn't have it, Dallas doesn't have this, you know, and drainage is a big, big issue just about everywhere. But there's that possibility of Congress, the congressman being very receptive and being very supportive and going to the point of encouraging this. So that's another issue that, or another concern that I wanted to address.
Thank you, Mario. Anything else? Do I hear a motion to acknowledge?
So move.
By Commissioner Sanchez, second by Commissioner Benavides. All in favor, signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed, item carries. Thank you all very much.
Thank you.
Thank you for being here.
Thank you.
Hope you can thaw out as soon as you walk out. It's freezing in here.
Hey, Mario, take care, man. Okay, I think we took care of all the consent. Okay, budget amendments, line item transfers, and/or salary schedules.
Judge, Commissioners, you had the budget amendments placed in front of you.
Do we have one for Subway?
No, I'm sorry. No petty cash. The first budget amendment is to realize funding for the Operation Stone Garden for the Sheriff's Department. And the other one is for the parks to utilize $1,600 worth of donations that they have received. The next line item transfers are for HIDA and for the WIC department. The WIC department is being increased due to, originally they had only received, I believe, half a year's funding. They have now received the balance of to finish the fiscal year, so that is why you see that large budget amendment in there. And one for the DA's hot check to utilize $15,000 of fund balance. The salary schedules that you have attached are the full per annum salaries for the WIC and for the Public Health Fund 240 for your approval.
Questions?
No, just move to
Second.
approve.
Moved by Commissioner Benavides, second by Commissioner Gatsa. Any further discussion? All those in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, item carries. Claims.
Claims payroll dated February I believe it's the 17th for $1,685,501.71. Caremark health claims for $119,094.77. We also have warrants number 274029 through 274694. The first claims that I have listed are 274029 through 274066. Those are your contract payments for the month of February, and that is up to the court to determine when they would like to have those checks released. They are for the month of February for that month. So if they're released on the 23rd, that would be a week from today. On February the 24th, that would be on a Friday. So that is up to the court's discretion to determine when they would like to have those released. I'd also like to read in void claims 274118 for $71 and warrant number 274493, which is a claim for the Olmito water supply. That check was processed for, they're coming back and billing for 4 years of bills that they did not bill.
Is that the $16,000 or $20,000 water bill?
It's a claim for $8,670 that we had processed for payment. In reviewing the claim as it was presented, it needs some clarification because they have gone back an additional year in addition to the 4 years. So
What's that number again?
it's check number 274493. It's on the check register dated February the 14th.
Okay.
So we have contacted the Olmito Water District, and they will get back to us with a revised amount.
And they're charging this?
They have gone back. Apparently, when the billings were sent, they had not factored in a multiplier, so the bills were less than they should have been. And this oversight was discovered just recently, so they have gone back and they have issued invoices now for all of these periods that they did not have the multiplier in their equation.
Are we legally bound to pay them?
I've conferred with Civil on that, and they're Dilba, you want to address that?
We have received the water and we have received the services, and we
received the bills too,
and we
and
received
they
the bills,
didn't show.
but they were calculated incorrectly. The Olmito Water Supply Company has gone back 4 years, and actually it's been longer than that the error has been, but they're only allowed legally to collect 4 years back.
Well, but they gave us a bill based on our usage, and we paid the bill,
Correct.
right?
Yes.
And now they're saying, oh, instead of charging you the 30 cents a gallon rate that we should have, we were only charging you 20 cents a gallon. So you owe us 10 cents a
Well,
gallon.
it was a multiplier. They were charging us the right rate, but they were not charging us at the right consumption, the right gallons, because they didn't have a multiplier.
Okay, and have you gone in to actually verify, or do we have anyone from your office that's gonna verify these before we just pay it?
I know for a fact that in some residences in Olmito, they were challenged, and they actually came down. You know, they were able to negotiate. So why would we not be able to do the same thing?
I imagine we could. One thing that we did notice was we verified with the water company that their billing is correct now. And the corrected billing, or rather the billing that we received for this last month, does not show an increase from the prior month. So, there's some
Doesn't make
there that needs
sense.
to be looked at, yes.
Well, and the other thing is, if we didn't budget this, how can we pay it?
It's gonna, at the end of the
It will impact our
year.
budget for this year.
But isn't it budgeted in the budget?
In the last 4 years?
Well, not for the prior year's budgets have lapsed. Right now, the water
That
budget.
money's been swept, right?
Yes. The budget that was approved for this location was $310,000, and our year-to-date right now cost are $108,000. So, but it would impact our current year's budget.
I think we should at least go back and say, hey.
Pull out your fine-tooth comb and pick through it, Martha.
Well, we have contacted them, and they will be getting back with us on that.
Okay.
I know that the school district in Los Fresnos had to pay like 30-some thousand.
Excuse me, question. I'm sorry I couldn't hear you, Commissioner. I didn't mean to interrupt. Are they billing everyone else as well?
It's my understanding they are. I couldn't tell you for sure. I don't know how many customers that were impacted. I imagine all of them were impacted.
Okay.
I don't know.
And so that's one of the claims that you're voiding?
Yes.
For now?
That is the void claim, yes.
Okay. So in other words, you caught it and said, let's not pay this, let's look into it.
Correct.
Okay,
yes.
good. And what was the other voided claim for?
It's 274-118. It was paid to the wrong vendor.
How much was it?
$71.
Okay.
And I need for the court to designate when they want to release the claims, I mean, the contract payments.
When do we normally release them?
Usually you release them anywhere from 3 to 4 days prior to the end of the month, because we do have some that get sent out on, by FedEx, so that they will have them for the last day of the month.
Well, I would say whenever we normally release them.
Whenever we need to be on time.
Right.
Okay, so we would release them on the 27th, which would be on a Monday. February has 29 days this year.
If that's enough time, or if you don't want to
overnight,
risk not getting them the money on time, send them Friday if you want.
Friday would be
Okay,
better.
the 24th.
I have a couple of questions before we approve these. Number 30, warrant 4030, the second one. What is that for?
4030?
It's a lease agreement for
Oh,
garden.
okay, just a moment.
Where are you?
And 4031 on the daily check register.
4030 for BGS Narandas
Yes.
Incorporated for $3,500. That is a lease agreement for the WIC department. It's for one of the clinics, I believe. Yes.
And the other one, BP and Peggy and Newman Properties?
That is funding for rental lease agreement for the HIDA division.
Okay.
And I have some questions if you're ready for questions.
Sure.
We have no place to put these people?
There's 274121, 1,709,386.
Yes.
That's an RMA. I thought we had all the RMA money out of the county already.
Those funds were wired into Cameron County's general fund for some reason.
By whom?
By, I believe it was, it's reimbursement that came in under the Federal Aviation Department, and it was reimbursement for the West Rail, and the funds arrived in our general fund. They came in December, and we're moving the funds from Cameron County to RMA, since that is where they belong.
Have we already notified anybody that would be sending funds that RMA has their own checking account?
They have all been notified.
Okay.
All of
But
them.
you know how some are, the government.
Well, I want to make sure we keep our checkbook separate. I had another question. Let me see. And it was with the water, ironically, warrant 274272, a $16,000 water bill. It's on page 30, or 29, I'm sorry.
Last three digits are 272.
272. I mean, I can understand maybe an electric bill being that high, but a water bill?
That is the maintenance and operations for the jail division, 5121.
Is that
Olmito Water Supply.
And that's for 1 month?
Yes.
They use that much water?
The maintenance and operations for the jail runs very, very high. The water bill, yes.
And are they the only water provider that we can use?
I believe so, yes. This has been visited before, and that is the provider for that area.
Wow, okay.
I think when this was being built, rather than using PUB, there was some discussion, and the option was to use the Olmito Water
They
Company.
agreed to build a tower there, you know.
Is there a tower there?
Right? Wasn't that the fact? There's no
But they
tower.
never built it?
I know that there was talk about a tower, you know, like I can't remember. Yeah, for pressure issues.
And is PUB there and available to, if they give us a better rate?
Do you know?
They have like service areas, you know, like they.
Oh, that's right.
You
I
have like
think the
a
sheriff-
service area.
I think the sheriff has also spoken to the water. I think Pete has also trying to bring this down. I mean, the cost and.
I mean,
nobody's been
16,000 a water bill?
Yes.
I mean, it's not, I mean, they leave the water running all day?
Well, we budgeted 301,000.
Wow, okay, just,
So really, if you budgeted 301,000 for water, then we're ahead of the game. That's a lot of flushing.
That's
It's
good
also a
news.
cold.
All right.
That's good
we
news.
need to put some outhouses.
Anything else?
Let me see.
Probably need to.
Oh, yeah, I had a question. Warrant number 274370. Now, I don't know where this money comes from, but why are we buying dog toothpaste?
4370.
Well, I don't know, 274370. It's Walmart Community. It's on page 42.
This is coming out of the juvenile fund 450, which is the juvenile probation department. The juvenile,
How much is it?
the
They
dog toothpaste is $7.94.
Okay, you're questioning $7 of toothpaste?
Well, I'm
Or is it more?
questioning,
Because
why
that's
are we
too-
buying a dog toothbrush, dog toothpaste? There's several, if you
Well,
look at
because,
them.
well, number one, they have a dog on site that they've adopted that runs around the ground. I think it's a golden lab, if I
It may
remember
be one
right.
of their juvenile programs
Yeah,
that they.
and so, no, it's a dog that's there on site that they've adopted. If y'all have ever been to the juvenile, they got a dog that's running around that, you know, the inmate, the juveniles take care of and feed and et cetera, as part of their,
So we give them a pet?
well, it belongs to juvenile probation.
Okay. And then I guess my next question is, since it's juvenile probation, Bruce, do we need to be
Well, that's on the-
approving these?
Well, that's on the agenda for discussion later. So for now, we need to approve all these until we decide that we're not going to do that.
Well, the
Even if we're not
doggy issue is not an issue that I'm concerned about. I'm talking
Well, I'm not
about
either, but
employees.
We're talking about it.
Well, it's not that. I don't mean anything by that. I'm just saying, you know, the issue I have with our county connection to the JPD on an employee issue.
Okay, well, that's
is
on for
completely
discussion a
different.
little bit later. So you're.
Okay.
All right, anything else?
So we budgeted money for dog toothpaste.
Well, juvenile probation, that's part of their budget.
And that's kind of, would that be mismanagement that you were talking about earlier?
I don't know, you'd have to ask juvenile probation.
Okay, I mean, these are tax dollars and we're buying,
No, this is Fund 450, which is their program, their
So it's not-
probation
it's not-
fund.
okay, but where does that money come from?
Actually, their 450 is where their, I believe that's where their program excess funds for Title 4E is. So
And-
this is their money.
State money in the.
Well, at the end of the day, it's all
Someone
tax
paid
dollars.
taxes to create
Somebody did.
that
At some
fund.
point,
But it's,
somewhere,
yes.
yeah, it's at
So
some.
is it like grant money, basically?
I would have to verify that.
I don't know,
This one has particular guidelines, and they set up their programs within their parameters that they have.
You know, it wouldn't be fair if I don't question everything, not just employee travel, so
I don't see anybody here from juvenile probation to address that.
that's fine.
They're probably taking care of the dog. All right, anything else?
They're walking it. I had one other question that, 274691, County Investment Officer, $225. Is that something that you need as a county treasurer, or is that something for the RMA, Martha?
Those are 4691. Those are my annual dues as a county investment officer. And what this does is that by paying these annual dues, this is the first time that these dues get paid. It enables me to attend up to 2 seminars without paying a registration fee, where I will earn CPE credits, continuing education credits. I am required as an auditor to have 40 hours and as a CPA to have 40 continuing education hours per annum, and this will help me meet part of my criteria.
Okay, but you're not the county investment officer.
No, I am not.
Okay, and so this is not something that you're doing for the RMA?
This is not something that I am required to have as a county auditor. I think that attending and being a member and being an officer is a certification that I have met. And as a county auditor, I think the benefit will be to, in addition to probably RMA, the benefit to Cameron County would be much more, because we all know that the county has over in excess of probably 50, 60, $80 million. And attending these seminars gives me the additional insight to and up-to-date information on any, changes that may be coming through.
Okay, and then I guess my last question was this an agenda item that we approved, or
Dues?
for you to be part of this if it's not required?
This is an educational course that I take. I have not traveled this year to attend any classes under this, okay? The fact that these dues are being paid, the dues are in my budget for my department. The court has approved the dues budget.
Okay, but this is not a travel item. This is just a membership thing.
Correct.
Okay. All right.
Please note my abstention on the affidavits I provided. Do I hear a motion to approve claims?
So moved.
Moved by Commissioner Hernandez, second by Commissioner Gatz. Any further discussion? All those in favor?
Claim number 00274-219. Abstain on that one.
Signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, item carries. Item D has been done. Item C's been done. D, discussion regarding the construction of a new animal shelter. Commissioner.
I put this item on the agenda, and I know this is not the time or place, especially as late as it is today. I'd like to call for a workshop, and I have offered to return or put back the money I've put aside through the process of $500,000 for the community center in Lomito, put it back into a fund. And with the help of the judge, we're trying to come up with some ways to fund this out of last year's bond project and not look at any kind of new monies. So I'd like to ask this commission that this at a time, maybe.
Well, let's do this. Let's have we'll acknowledge this discussion. We'll set up a workshop as soon as we can get everybody together in terms of what we can do with the money. What I would recommend is that we scrutinize every project and that the bond issues were appropriated for, find out what the intent is, and maybe we can find some savings there by not doing certain things and with some of that money. And as the way I understand it, we'd have to somehow we go back and redo some of the bond issuance issues in order to allow it. In other words, we would go ahead and I guess amend the bond issue or elect not to spend. As an example on yours, if we're not going to do that, then there's got to be some kind of action that we would take that says, we're not going to use it there, and then reissue that $500,000, for this animal. I think it's something that I know Yvette's in the audience with her, some of her staff, and something that we've talked about for years to do an animal shelter. It was brought to the light once again not too long ago by the news media, which was kind of good. And we need to look at that. The animal shelter that we have is obsolete and doesn't anywhere meet the requirements or the needs of a county our size. So with that, let me ask for a motion to acknowledge the discussion, and then we'll ask Pete when it gets back to place the item as a workshop item to discuss it. And in the interim, get with bond counsel to find out the mechanics as to how we need to go about doing this.
That'd be fine. Also, I did talk to the city manager in Brownsville, and we did discuss the idea of a public-public partnership, maybe building something adjacent to theirs, where it would be like a one-stop shop. Being at 511, where it's located now, is outside the city limits. It's really a perfect place for one, unless somebody has a better idea. But
well, why don't we discuss that during the workshop?
Yeah, sure.
Because we do have a lot of land available adjacent to the Carizales Rucker. We have a lot of land that, when that land was bought, it was bought, to eventually move a lot of the operations out there, and that may be one of them that's suited. And then entertain with the city of Brownsville.
Sure.
Well, and there's a lot of people that are interested in the humane aspect, and maybe we can look into doing some sort of public-private partnership if an organization's willing to step up and raise some of those funds.
Yeah, well, what I've seen, what they do is they provide volunteer time, they provide staffing time, vets will donate their time, but this is the brick and mortar that we can use to develop a budget for the M&O, which is expensive.
Well, but I remember there was a lady here when we were doing budgets, and she wanted to talk about building an animal shelter, and that might be the perfect opportunity for her to start a foundation or create something.
Well, we're looking at about $1.5 million, right, Yvette? I think the last number I saw was 1.6, 1.7. Let's say it's well over $1 million to do it the way we believe that it needs to be done. And during that workshop, that'll give you some time. She did provide some information already that's in your packet, but it'll give everybody some time to think about how we want to approach this.
At the same time, Judge, I'd like to bring out the fact that we have already entered into contract with architects on each of these projects. So how is that going to affect us?
I don't think that's a big deal. I mean, I
Well,
think
it is a
Hondo-
big deal
No,
because-
because we're not, Hondo, you want to address that? Right. I don't think we have any contracts in place where we may have gone out for qualifications and all that stuff, but I don't think we have contracts in place that we would be considered to breach or whatever. Tell me which one we've got in place already. Because I haven't seen anything.
I mean, we've been having regular meetings.
No, I understand that, but we can still take the plans. But remember, this is architects, not construction. So we haven't entered into any contracts for any construction. This is just architectural plans. That's it.
Well, but we don't want to be wasting money if we're not going to build.
Well, I mean, I don't think it's going to waste money. I think we'll do it eventually. We just put them on the shelf until we do that. I mean, that's why we need to have workshop and discuss. If y'all don't want to do it, that's fine.
And we probably need bond counsel there for sure.
I mentioned that already, that we need to have bond counsel as far as going through the mechanics of how we're going to do it.
And are we going to be buying the dogs' toothbrushes at this animal shelter that we built?
Only if it's budgeted.
We're going to get them donated.
But I think and even then, when we hire architects, we can always reduce the scope of what they're going to do. If we're going to go out there and they're going to build, a 20,000 square foot facility for X amount of dollars, hey, scale it down to do a 15,000 square foot facility. So we can always adjust those contracts, or those architectural contracts. But there's been no construction contracts that have been awarded, to my knowledge.
But my only concern is, Judge, that we talked about these projects when we went out and we got the bond monies. Now, we've already come into this part, and you want to go back and take away from those projects.
Well, that's why we'll have the
this.
workship to discuss it, Commissioner.
Yeah,
but
but I mean,
we're just going to talk about it. But you didn't even, quite frankly, you didn't even vote but you didn't even vote to pay for it.
But I voted for this.
Of course you did, but without paying
Well,
for
it doesn't matter. I
Okay.
still voted
Well,
for
we will
this,
discuss
and
it
my
at- we-
residents in precinct
We
1.
will discuss it at the workshop, and then we'll just take it from there.
Let her finish.
She's done.
No, I'm not
Are you
done.
interrupting her? Let her finish,
I am
please.
not done.
All right, finish.
I'm just telling you that I don't think that this is the right thing to do at this point in time. I mean, how do we know that if each one of us is asked to give 60 or 100,000 or whatever amount it is to make up the difference for an animal shelter? And I have nothing against building an animal shelter, but I think this is something that we should have looked at back then, not now. That is how I feel. So, I mean, ultimately, I know that the court is going to make a decision, but I really do not believe that this is the way that this should have been handled.
I think, I'll be honest too, I think that we're reacting to public outcry. I have a concern. We have a facility over there that's worth $25,000 at the most, right? I don't know. There's cages, it has been providing a service. It has been improved. With cooperation from the PAS program, we were able to update some of those facilities, move an office there to accommodate a little better record keeping and a place for some of these guys to do their work in, and it's not excellent, but it is providing a service out there, I have a concern taking $1.5 million from a bond that I supported to build something that we did not advertise in the paper that we were going to do with the money that we voted for. I mean, we went to the people of this county and said, we're going to go in debt for this money. These are the projects we're going to do. These are the things that we're going to do. We outlined them, we advertised them, we voted on them. The majority of the court agreed to it, it passed. I don't think there's enough money for some of the projects as outlined already.
I think,
I mean, if you want to give up your $500,000 and you can
Listen,
get it
I
legally.
didn't-
Well, I think,
Do it.
I think, hold on. I think that if you use the argument that certain things have been providing a service, we can say the same thing about the Los Fresnos Annex. It's been providing a service. No need to go out and spend $1.7 million. I don't support it, but I'm saying that some of these facilities are outdated. They're 100 years old or whatever the age is, and we're doing it to try to better something. So to say, well, it's been providing a service, we could use that argument with any facility. It's been providing a service.
To say you're going to spend $1.5 million on a facility.
I did not say that. What I said, no, I did not say that. What I said was,
I'd rather spend them on a ditch to drain western Hidalgo County.
well, but
I agree.
But
I agree.
that's not what I said. What I said was that no, it's not. What I said was that the estimate that's in your packet that was told by me back when we looked at it a few years ago was about $1.6, $1.7 million. I didn't say we were going to spend that. I'm saying that's what the estimate was given a few years ago to build that type of facility. That's what I said.
Well, and I think, Judge, a workshop is good because we're not saying that it's going to happen. Let's talk about it. Let's consider the pros and cons.
That's all I said.
But by the same token, I respect the fact that Commissioner Garza and Commissioner Benavidez say, you know what, publicly, we've told the public, we want you to endorse this bond issue. This is the purpose of it. And there's certain things that
The public did not endorse this bond issue. We did not go out for a vote. We voted for it here, whether the public wanted. And then when it came down to vote for it, some members of the court didn't vote for it. So it's not that the public endorsed it because the public did not have the opportunity to vote on it.
The public expects for us to follow through with what we say.
Well, we can always change.
Well, that's
I
true.
mean, we've changed. We do, all I'm saying is we workshop it, we have public notice.
And that's
We
fine.
follow bond counsel and we see if we can do it. You know what? If the majority of the court doesn't want to do it, that's fine. We did what we thought was in the best interest. If the court doesn't want to do it, that's fine.
No,
Sure.
I don't think it's a matter of the court doesn't want to do it. I think it's a matter of how you fund what you want to do. All of us, I think, want a
All the
better
projects
shelter.
to do.
We want all the, I mean, I would like to see a better animal shelter.
I don't
out
see
there.
anything wrong with going back and looking at the projects that we've supported and see if we can scale them back and find some savings by not doing certain things in order to accommodate and build an animal shelter. If we cannot do it, then we can't do it. It's that simple. At least we've tried. Do you agree?
I agree. My point is, I mean, if you want to expand on what you're saying about, well, we made a commitment, well, did we make a commitment to provide all the M&O for whatever we're going to build? I don't even know what's going to be exactly what's being built in each precinct yet. And, we had a wish list of what we'd like to have for this park and for that park and for Los Fresnos, but there was no specifics as to what, well, are we going to add personnel? Is it going to cost more utilities? Are we, what are the costs associated with it going into next year's budget cycle? But nobody questioned that. We kind of said, everybody kind of agreed. I think at some point you have to come back and look at what exactly am I building or what exactly are you building? Not that we're against it, just so we disclose the actual cost going forward. And when we do the next budget, we're all aware of it. That's it. There's not an argument here as whether we do it or don't do it. It's just, it was strictly up for discussion. If it goes, fine. If it doesn't go, fine. But I would certainly like to see us lean in the direction of a new animal shelter. Thank you.
Anything else? Do I hear a motion to acknowledge, and then we'll place it on the agenda at a near future meeting for discussion through a workshop? Motion by Commissioner Hernandez. Do I have a second to acknowledge? By Commissioner Gatsa. All in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Item carries. Item E, discussion and possible action to accept a portion of Road 408 south of Espinosa Road into the county road system in Precinct 4. My question on this is on item D of the memo that you sent out. It talks about the portion of the road lying south. It talks about the county, it would have to be upgraded before presenting to Commissioner's Court for approval. Who would upgrade that?
Well, we had a discussion last week with Commissioner Sanchez and legal counsel, engineering, and we discussed that portion of the road, which is 900 feet south of Espinosa Road. Right, and we discussed the issues behind the road. The road, as it is now, it's a public road, but it's not in the county road system.
When you say public road, what does that mean?
It means that it's available to the public, but it's not operated and maintained by the county.
And how does it become a public road?
Oh, well, that's the dedication that is given through the subdivision process or plats that have been there before. I mean, when was it there?
Before the subdivision rules or anything came into play, that was dedicated as a public road way back in the days of dirt roads?
That's correct.
Okay.
And it's in the original plats whenever subdivision was done on raw land or urban or rural areas, I guess.
Right.
And so it's dedicated to the public for public use. It's not operated and maintained by the county, but it is used by the public, okay?
Okay, and I'm sorry, and for purposes of the public and the discussion, at one point, none of our roads were paved, way back in the early 1900s. And over time, roads began to get paved. County government began to put in caliche, paving, whatever, cement. And so this road was a public road way before any of that. Correct. Okay. And so what is the process then that the county would acquire that road into the county inventory?
Yes, sir. And that's one of the things that I think that was discussed at this meeting. And it's a very simple process, really. It's a petition from somebody requesting that portion be brought into the county road system. And that petition has been done by basically one contact person, Romeo Longoria, which he owns property north of that area, but also some of the residents that are on both sides of that portion of the road, requesting that they would like to see if they could be considered for, consider that portion to be considered for adopting into the county road system. What he would require there, he would have to meet the county subdivision rules and regulation standards or criteria. One is that you have to have 60 foot of right-of-way, which we do have. And it would have to be constructed in accordance with those requirements. Basically, stabilize the subgrade, the caliche base, 6 inches, and then the hot mix.
So you're saying we have 60 foot of right-of-way?
We do have 60 foot of right-of-way for that portion.
Dedicated to the county.
No, it's dedicated to the public. It's in place already. The 60 foot.
Not to the county.
Not to the county. But it meets one of the requirements of the county is that you have to have 60
How many
foot
homes
right
are
of
on
way.
that? I know towards the north side, there may be maybe 2 homes on one side and like maybe 1 or 2 on across the street.
That's correct.
But then there's a huge, I know that, I'm familiar with the area. So then there's acreage, just vacant land, pretty much all the way from where it's paved.
Yes.
All the way to where you almost get to that first little house, maybe it's about half a mile.
Yes, sir.
Maybe a little bit less. But there's no homes on either side. They're just fields.
Well, that's the thing that we discuss is what would be the benefits of considering that portion. One would be, of course, that you would improve the quality of life for the residents, the immediate residents.
That's the connector that the lady that came at the beginning of the meeting spoke about. Yes. The dirt road that's a little connector.
Yeah, but she can go through Espinosa to get into the
That was
homes,
going
and
to
that's a
say,
paved
in
road.
order for this to be beneficial, we would have to do that other portion on the north side, which would be that future development that Longoria has. And based on that, it would make that road whole, I guess.
A complete road.
A complete road, meeting certain standards or requirements of the county.
You're saying north, but you mean to the south, because Espinosa has the first section of the area that they want paved, but to the south of that is the dirt road.
And so we looked at that, and you know, it's doable. Sure. There is some cost involved, and we provided an estimate there, and it's basically around $75,000 to do that portion.
Now, is that dirt road portion, does the county have the right of way there?
No, we don't. That's one that we probably have to acquire an additional, what, 30 feet?
Yeah, well, let me.
Yeah, go ahead.
What I passed out there, what you all have in your hands there, if you'll go to that last aerial map that's on there, you'll see how it's got 3 different colors that are delineating that road there.
What's the yellow part?
The yellow part is publicly dedicated road through the subdivision developments. that are on each side of the road there at the entrance from off of Espinosa.
Correct. So they have access from Espinosa into that area, right?
Right, into that general area there. And the right-of-way there is publicly dedicated right-of-way.
Right.
Now,
How much right-of-way is there?
60 feet.
There is 60.
Yes,
And
sir.
is that paved?
No, that area is not paved. That right now is, maybe has some caliche on it. Very,
Is it
very,
maintained by the county?
pardon me?
Is that maintained by the county?
No.
That's the request.
What's the red line?
The red line is, still technically could be considered to be of private nature. The original map of which that whole road, the portion that's in yellow and portion in red, all the way back to La Cipra subdivision, which is in black in there, all of that originally was reserved to the abutting property owners. And then as the subdivisions became the developer along that stretch, they dedicated, our county requires for them to dedicate additional public right-of-way. That's why the yellow portion, we have the right-of-way in place, but it does not meet the standards of construction for us to take it into our system.
So is the yellow the part that they're requesting to be?
My understanding was that it was to determine whether that area could be brought into the system, and also the area that's in red, which right now is not.
And Mr. Longoria is here.
Yes, that's
The
correct.
gentleman who's requesting that.
That's correct.
At the time that the subdivision on both sides of the yellow was created, at that time, the 60-foot right-of-way was dedicated.
That's correct.
Correct?
That's correct.
At that time, did the county have a policy of accepting roads if they were up to county standard?
That would be a question that maybe Mr. Sanchez can answer as to how the policies would apply when new development occurs in subdivisions.
Alex is our subdivision coordinator also, and he's very familiar with the requirements or the policy that we had in place, right? And I think we did have something already.
Yeah, and believe the first subdivision, there was a 1971 subdivision rules regulations, and in that one, it did say there had to be a pavement road. And then after that, in 1993, there was Cameron County policies that were in place for roads and required asphalt.
Okay, and so when were those subdivisions created, before or after 71?
One of them was, well, all of them were after 71.
93 and 99, it says
Right.
here.
Okay, so at the time that the subdivision was created, the county already had a policy in place that required, in order for us to take the road into the system, it had to be paved?
Correct. The 71 required it to be paved.
Well, how did that get approved if it wasn't paved?
Well, it was approved because the way that our current standards are, if they want the county to take it over, they will have to improve it to county road standards. If they don't want to get the county to maintain it, they'll just keep it to caliche grade.
Well, but that subdivision went in 93, you said, Commissioner?
It says here 90, it says Country Boy Haven subdivision number 3, and then it's in parentheses 93.
So at that time, in 93, was there a requirement by the county that it had to be paved?
I would believe so. For the county to maintain it.
For the county to maintain.
But not to establish a subdivision?
But not to establish a subdivision.
Okay. And then if the county didn't maintain it, who is it up to maintain that road?
It would be to the public or whoever's fronting on that road.
Whoever's using it.
The adjacent property owners.
Right.
So they would be responsible for maintaining that road, and there wouldn't be any obligation to the county?
No, because, I don't know what happened in 93, but based on current standards, they would have to improve it to county road standards in order for the county to maintain it.
To accept it into the road system. And right now, we're at a point where they're asking to accept that into the road system.
Correct.
Okay.
So that we can provide the improvement.
And our policy right now, in order to accept it into the road system, is that it has to be
Correct.
paved.
At 24-foot.
And so we haven't done any maintenance or work on it.
Not that we know of.
Okay. And Mr. Longoria is here. If you want to come up, sir, and enlighten us with your knowledge.
here on 99. Here's a set of plans by Tech Engineering, all the signatures from the county, that I did not have to pave it. I would have paved it, but since in 1993, the other section was already built, they left that as a caliche. And the first piece of equipment that went into that land was county equipment from Commissioner Valdez. They went in and opened the road for Poor Boy or that county boy or that other subdivision, and they took my land. Fine, it was a county deal. They opened it, but it was a one-time deal. That's what they say. But as soon as the county machines went in there, the public went in there. Fine, you know, it's a county deal. But well, here are the plans from Tech. Then if you would require me to.
Have y'all looked? Well, don't give it. Have you all looked at those? And what does it say? I mean,
Well, and that's the question I asked right now, Mr. Walker. To get a subdivision, you don't have to pave it. But if you're going to want the road to be maintained by the county, it has to be paved. And so the reason you weren't required to pave it, Mr. Longoria, is that you weren't asking for it to be part of the county system.
Well, somebody had already opened the road, so it wasn't my requirement pertaining to Tech Engineering. They already filed the volume here on the court. I didn't have to do it because somebody had already opened the road. In 99, I could have paved it, but there's no specs here from the county, and everybody signed it, Water District. That's the way it was done in 99. Maybe they were just changing at that time, I don't know. But
Well, and that's what I asked him. I said in 99 or 93, was there a requirement that if you create a subdivision, you have to pave? And the answer to that?
maybe December 99, this is September, August of 99, I don't know. But if they would have asked me for me to pave it, I would have paved it. I had all the equipment, contractor for PUB, nothing that I didn't want to pave it. I could have paved it. They didn't ask for me to do it. That's the only thing I got for those people. And we're gonna pave the other section, so that's what that land was for, subdivided. That other section in red is in process to be subdivided, and we're gonna pave it.
The dirt road.
The other piece that's left, the red section.
Okay.
It's in process to be.
How much have you allocated in funding to pave that?
Approximately that's an average deal, about 75, whatever it costs, that's what's gonna be done. And we're gonna pay that money. We're willing to give it to the county for that section, if the county can do the rest of the road with that amount of money. We're gonna pay that 75,000 to get it done.
If the county, if we come up with a cost to pave to connect what's the subdivision on the south called? Cypress? Okay. If we can connect that to Espinosa, if there's a cost of material that we can come up with to build it up to county standard, would you be willing to come up with the cost of material if the county was to put in the labor?
I've suggested that months ago. I've told them we have money, but this has to come up to the court, so I'm willing to do that. We've got the money to pay construction and material for the rest of that section that we're gonna subdivide.
But not including the first part.
I'm saying construction and material, but if you combine them both, it's a little bit less, but we're willing to work with the county, because we're gonna pay it anyway, we're gonna spend the money. But if you all can use it with your funds, with your equipment, and do it with that amount of price, because our section is a little longer than you all's, I believe. My section is a little longer.
Okay.
So we're willing to work.
So just to be clear, you're willing to put up all the material cost to connect the two paved sections?
I'm willing to pay material, construction for my section, all of it.
Okay, but that's not my question.
But you can probably make it with the rest?
Because we don't have money budgeted to be able to do that road. We do have equipment and manpower, and that's where we can put our money to work in agreement with you. The issue is, if it costs us $75,000 just in material, can you come up with the cost of material if we're going to put in all the labor for the entire strip?
We'll get some numbers up.
I think that before we go down that path, we've got to clear it, not only with engineering, but legal as well. I don't know if we can expend public funds on a non-county road. So I'm not, I mean, I don't know what that I can't read those types of documents, but, or else we're going to have, I tell you what, we're going to have everybody in the county that sits on a public road or a private road and say, hey, I'll pay the material, but you put the labor and equipment. And I think we may be opening up something that we may not want to go down that path. So I want to get it cleared with legal to see if we can even do this. And I'm not sure. I mean, we can do it. I think we can try to find the resources, but I just don't know if we can legally do this.
Well, there's one other aspect, though, that we're going to need as well, and that's the right-of-way, the 60-foot right-of-way for that private section.
I think we already have it. Yeah, I think.
On the dirt road part, on the red part, we don't have the right-of-way, do we, Mr. Walker? Well, no, but what I'm asking is, you would have to dedicate that if you own it, and the landowner across from you would also have to dedicate it.
We're even ready to do this. We can give the other 10 foot of that property over there, put it in a trust fund, you can't touch it. We're willing to give another 10 foot on the side. We just need to get that going, because there's a lot of people on that side. The outlaw is too small. There's a baseball park over there. In an emergency situation, there's no other exit.
People can't get out.
Well, why don't we just, yeah, I don't know if we can decide that today, but I think that we do need to get with legal to see if we can even do what we think we hope to do. I don't think we can.
Well,
Bruce?
Yes, and I think any improvements we do out there, we would first have to accept it into the county road.
Right, so that's what I'm saying. So you really, and if you can't accept it unless you change the policy that we've adopted, and if you do that, then you're just opening itself up for all kinds of problems in the future.
Yeah, there's a few other roads.
Yeah, Commissioner Gatsa's got a boatload of roads that fit the same thing.
That fit this criteria that, and with all due respect to everyone and fairness to it, as long as we treat them all the same, I don't have a problem.
I think that's part of the policy decision that was made some time ago, is to avoid this very thing that's coming up before us now, because had this been done as a matter of a county road, it would have already been paved, and we would have been maintaining it for years, and we would be talking about the next segment to connect it up to the other subdivision. So now that, we had quite a lengthy meeting about this the other day over at the San Benito Annex, and actually this is on the agenda a little faster than I thought it was going to come back on. But now that we know kind of where the landowners stand, and as I understand the